Mitchell, you'll tell me when it's live, right? We'll do it live. Oh no, Mitchell, it's live. Hey, hello everyone. My name is Jonathan Dornbush. I am joined today by Alex Osborne.
Hey!
Our wonderful homepage editor here at IGN. I am IGN's news editor, and you may or may not have heard that I reviewed Kingdom Hearts 3, which, holy crap, is finally out. It's finally been released. This game is real, and you can play it right now. Of course, if you can't play it right now, we're going to be playing it for the next 2 hours on the stream. We're going to be showing you sort of the beginning of the game. We're going to be avoiding story spoilers as much as we can, so no real cutscenes will be shown. But I have a few later saves, so we'll get to show you a little bit of the Toy Story World, Kingdom of Corona, and maybe some other stuff based on the chat. If you are watching us for reference, we are on YouTube at youtube.com/IGN, on IGN.com, specifically on the homepage. You can come check us out there. We're also at twitch.tv/IGN and mixer.com/IGN. Mitchell Saltzman, our producer, did I get all that correct?
You got it all right, Jonathan. You are a pro.
It's a lot of URLs to remember. But anyway, we're going to jump right in. Alex, you'll be taking a look at the chat and everything. So let me know as questions come in. As I mentioned, I reviewed the game. So if you have any questions about the review, feel free to ask those. But we're going to be jumping in. Alex, for reference, you have not seen the game yet. You haven't played the game yet.
Correct, and I haven't seen this beautiful title screen yet,
It's
so
wonderful.
I'm pretty excited.
What difficulty do you want me to do? How should I embarrass myself? Do you want me to do proud? Mitchell, should
If
I
you're
do
proud.
Proud.
Are you brave enough?
We'll see what happens.
If you feel confident, you should always go for proud.
I'm never confident. That's my secret. Yeah, the slider looks good. Cool. We'll go with that slider. Yeah. It was weird starting the game up and seeing the title screen. That was the first thing that threw me off. Is like, oh, this is a real thing, because I'm so used to like Kingdom Hearts title screens and the music that plays, like the melody of Dearly Beloved.
Yep.
Always means so much to me, and it's just like a profound gaming memory.
I taught myself to play that on the piano.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Can you still do it, or was this like 10 years ago?
It was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll come back to me, but
I learned how to play the Office theme 10 years ago. Can't do that now. For reference, yeah, if you haven't seen the game before, the loading screens are basically, you have a gummy phone, like an iPhone in the game. The loading screens are basically like a social media feed.
Cool.
So for the kids out there.
So no Jiminy Cricket journal.
No. The journal is a little different this time around. Jiminy Cricket is keeping track of everything. He's still involved, and we're skipping the cutscenes again to avoid story spoilers, because if you're at work, there we go. We're going to see what happens. Gameplay was temporarily blocked. Now it is no longer blocked. Mitchell, did that throw everything off?
Nope, you're good.
Is the stream broken?
Nope,
Have
you're
we
good.
all died? All right, cool. We're still alive. So yeah, we're jumping into the early part of the game. This is basically, if you've played a Kingdom Hearts game, especially the ones that start with Sora, this should seem like a pretty familiar opening. So Alex, tell me a little bit about your history with Kingdom Hearts as a fan of this whole series.
So I played the first two to completion a couple times, and then the other ones to varying degrees of completion. I still remember when my friend, he had a PS2. I was a Nintendo guy growing up. But when he showed me this game, this and Final Fantasy X were the two that sold me. All right, I need to go back and like just play everything from the PlayStation library. And this was definitely the game that really sold me on the platform. So yeah, and so here, like the other games, we make choices, right? As far as the items.
Yeah, you get to make choices at the beginning of the game, which essentially sets up what your stats will be at the beginning of the game. For reference, if you want to know what those stats could be, you can check out our Kingdom Hearts 3 wiki guide, which Casey DeFritas, one of our wiki editors, and then one of our freelancers, whose name I am currently blanking on. I'm very sorry about that, but have been working diligently on that guide to make sure day one you have plenty to work with. Yeah, this one works a little differently, though, and I kind of like it as much as it threw me off, because all these screenshots are essentially from the remix collections of like important scenes that happened in Sora's journey. And I really liked it because I was like, did they do all the remixes just so they could have high quality images to use in the scene? But yeah, so essentially they're showing off, you can see in the background, it's really cool, just so many iconic moments and images from their journey, like Sora, Donald, and Goofy meeting and agreeing to work together for the first time. That always ends up well. Okay, first choice. Actually, we could turn this to chat about what we should choose.
Yeah.
So there are 3 options. We can go through them right now. This is choose Wisdom, Sharp Mind that will grant you Mastery of Wondrous Power, probably magic.
What are the 3 so I can make a quick poll?
Wisdom is the first one. Vitality is the second one. And I think, hopefully I don't accidentally just choose Vitality right now by accident. No, and then the third option is Balance. So these are the 3 options that you basically get to choose. This is, of course, from Kingdom Hearts 1. Mickey helping to close the gates of Kingdom Hearts. Riku when he was possessed by Ansem, fighting with Sora, and then Sora, Donald, and Goofy agreeing to work together, one for all and all for one.
All right.
Friends are our power.
That poll is now up on IGN.com.
Thank you, Mitchell. You're very kind. We'll let people vote for a little bit of time. Alex, while we're letting people vote, have
Yes.
anyone asked any questions in any of the chats?
Let's take a look.
I had a question, or someone had a question earlier
Yes.
that I think is very pertinent. Can I start my Kingdom Hearts journey with Kingdom Hearts 3?
So you can. You legally are allowed to start Kingdom Hearts, your Kingdom Hearts journey with Kingdom Hearts 3. And I think the game actually does a pretty good job of suggesting, like, what you should pretty much know along the way. There's a lot of exposition, that recaps what's happened. And actually, they updated the game right ahead of launch in North America and I believe the West in general, that basically you can watch a set of 5 videos, the memory archives, that give you a summation of the most important events. That said, you don't really get, like, obviously you don't have the nuance of having played 9-10 games that have all of these character relationships going on, so there will be moments that really matter to someone who's played all those games that won't matter as much to you, but you'll get the gist of it. Andrew Goldfarb, one of my boss in the office, our executive news editor, he's played some of the Kingdom Hearts games, but not all of them, and so he was saying how he jumped into Kingdom Hearts 3, and he had a sense of things, but he was like, oh wow, the story's actually doing a pretty good job of teaching me what I didn't know, which I appreciate.
And you put together a pretty good breakdown of the games that you absolutely need to play, and then the ones that you can pass on.
Yeah, there are games like Kingdom Hearts Recoded. You don't need to play that or even watch the cutscenes because it's silly. But yeah, we did a breakdown, including a story breakdown of the whole Kingdom Hearts story, essentially in 5 minutes. That was a lot to do, and obviously a lot of smaller bits of detail were left out, but you can use that if you want a quick catch-up, and we're also doing a 3-part series right now that should catch you up for Kingdom Hearts. Anyway,
I'm just
let's
gonna
jump.
Looks like Vitality.
Yeah, I'm not calling
the
into
lead
this
here.
poll right now.
All
We want
we're
Vitality.
doing Vitality then. Let's jump in. Make that. I'm just gonna make the second choice, so we're also not just sitting in the opening for 2 hours.
Sounds good.
But yeah, as we're going, let me know if you see any other questions in the chat, guys. And Mitchell, you also tell us a little bit about your Kingdom Hearts experience.
Yeah, so are you sure you want to hear this story, Jonathan?
I want to hear it.
Can you
Break it
handle
down.
Mitchell, I like differing opinions, so I want to hear it.
So growing up, I loved the first 2 Kingdom Hearts games. I always tell the story of being a sad little boy in college, getting an early copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 because I was working in the game industry, playing in my dorm room with the door open, hoping to trap people who walk by, look in and be like, "Is that Kingdom Hearts 2?" Because I was a very lonely kid and I wanted friends.
I did that with Rock Band. I understand. I'd leave my door open playing Rock Band and be like, "Someone will come by. This will work out." It did.
So I played through both of them. I liked them a lot when I was a kid. Didn't really go back to them after that. And then the thing is, Jonathan, Kingdom Hearts is so weird in that it told its story across a ton of different handheld platforms that all were not very much like the game that I enjoyed on the PlayStation 2. And I just kind of fell off of the story, and before I knew it, I felt like I was so far behind that there was just no getting back on this train.
So you're saying you're a fake fan?
I mean, I'm a
Essentially.
fairly self-admitted fake fan.
No, I totally understand. I mean, so the PSP release Birth by Sleep, which I think is one of the better games in the franchise as a whole. Again, it was initially released on the PSP, which I loved that system. I played a bunch of games on it, but it was not the most popular system. And that game is weirdly so important to the lore and introduces so many main characters that are vital to Kingdom Hearts 3 that I can understand seeing all these characters in the trailers and being like, hey, I didn't have a PSP. I didn't get those collections yet. I don't know who those characters are. It is a weird process that this series and so much of its importance was split across all those platforms. But it is nice that they put these collections together. Have you been going back to them, Mitchell? I know, Alex, you have.
The collections?
Have you gone back to them at all?
I went back to Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I haven't played Birth by Sleep or any of the others yet.
Okay. And then Alex, what about you? Have you gone back to the
Yeah.
collections?
So 0.2 was kind of like the most important sort of reason. It kind of gives you the controls. I really enjoyed that one a lot. And then also Birth by Sleep, like you were saying, it's so integral to the story. It almost feels like it should be a numbered entry.
Yeah.
But just wild going back and re-experiencing it. As far as the music in this game, is it at the same level? I know Yoko Shimomura
Yeah.
the composer, and just an incredible composer. Do you feel like the soundtrack in this one is just as strong?
Oh, it's phenomenal. The way it catches. Oh, this is gonna be fun. This guy in the crowd is gonna be fun. So yeah, the soundtracks have always been one of my favorite aspects of the Kingdom Hearts franchise in general, and I think this one absolutely stands toe to toe with like the best entries in the soundtrack for sure. Especially with the new introduction of Pixar soundtracks in there and like iconic sounds from something like Toy Story. The soundtrack does a phenomenal job of capturing the essence of those things while also adding in a huge just like Kingdom Hearts flavor to it. And what I love about it in particular is that now that there's so much history to the franchise and there's so much from the older games to pull from, they use old themes in interesting ways, or like a bit of Hercules music will come in a way that you don't expect, or will come in at just the right moment. And it's so amazing that the history of this franchise gets to use in that way. And I really love the soundtrack for that matter. Though speaking of, there is the new theme song, Face My Fears.
Yep.
How do you feel about it, Alex?
I love it.
You love it?
You know, it took me a little bit to warm up to the first time. I wasn't so sure, but the more I've listened to it, I've totally fallen in love.
So this was co-produced by Utada Hikaru, who has done the other theme songs, as well as Skrillex, who many will know from Deadpool 2's use of his music. Mitchell, have you heard Face My Fears?
Yes, I have.
How do you feel about Face My Fears?
I think it's good. I still think Simple and Clean is the best.
Simple and Clean
Hikaru
is
song.
tough to beat.
I think Simple and Clean is like the unequivocal champ, especially the like remixed version that's in the first Kingdom Hearts opening. But Face My Fears is such a jam, you guys. Like when that Skrillex bass drop happens, I love that song. I listen to it at full blast now to get all my writing done. It is wonderful.
What was the one from Kingdom Hearts 2?
That's Sanctuary in the North American Western release, and then Passion in the Japanese release.
All right, well, we're doing a poll to find out which one people like the best.
Meanwhile, anything going on in the chat, Alex, as we skip through a couple cutscenes?
Some folks just kind of going back and forth. Not seeing any actual questions pop up. If you guys have any questions at all, please let us know. I actually have a question for you, Jonathan.
Ooh.
The combat this time around. It seems like they've added a lot of different elements and brought together a bunch of elements from all the different games.
Yes.
How does that sort of fit together?
I love the combat in this game. So there were a few people who saw it at E3, and I know there was like some back and forth about whether people thought it was too floaty or whether people just thought none of the systems worked well together. I think it does take a little bit of time to get used to how much is at work in the combat this time around. It's a lot to handle, and the game itself does a really good job at introducing you to each thing step by step, but I love how much is at play because you essentially have this non-stop, like you always have options and you always have a way to make action look cool. So right now, for example, we're going to Olympus. We're starting out at essentially in the Earth part of Mount Olympus. We'll play this for a little bit. But yeah, so you have like the attraction flow system, which is one of my favorite new additions. So you essentially can summon in like Disney theme park like rides that, I haven't done my shortcuts menu. This is going to be fun. You essentially get to bring in these huge rides like a pirate ship or like a splash run rafting thing or mad teacups and all this stuff. And it works so amazingly because not only does it look spectacular, like it's just this huge festival of lights basically, but they are amazing at crowd control. So when you have like 30 enemies coming at you and then you can just have a pirate ship come in and shop, it's really fun. It's a lot of fun to do that stuff.
Now, is that summoning different from like summoning Ariel and...
Yes.
Okay.
So like right now at the bottom on the commands menu, which command art is always one of my favorite things when it's based on this world. But, so anyway, the bottom one, which is still question marks at this point, will be your link summons, which are things like Ariel and Ralph and stuff like that. Whereas the pirate ships, they come in as commands. So after you've built up essentially a number of hits and things, or you hit the right enemy in a group, they'll show up as triangle commands that you get to hit. I'm actually going to do my shortcuts right now because I don't want to be at a loss in the middle of combat. So yeah, those will come in randomly. There are a few that are case specific, which if you've seen our E3 demo, the Rock Titan fight from this world has a case specific one with a big thunder railroad, basically. This is one of the other things you can use this in combat. This is essentially close to the free running in this game is like the flow motion system in Dream Drop Distance, the 3DS game. So basically, if you see a shiny surface like that, Sora can run up it. There are holes that you can dash into and he'll spin around, which you can also launch as like off of combat. I think it works less successfully, if only because sometimes it's really hard to get Sora to actually stick to a column and get him to like functionally launch in the way that I want him to. So I'd rather always use a lot of the other options in there than flow motion usually.
Okay.
Skip this scene.
And the flow motion itself, like spinning around objects and stuff, how's that? Is it a little unwieldy at times, or
not totally unwieldy?
Okay.
It takes a little while, especially for like the wall running, to get used to not make Sora kind of like stop short, because you can run vertically, you can run horizontally, you can have him sort of angle as you're going, but getting the hang of that stuff can be a little difficult at times. But I generally never really used it in combat.
Phew.
Gotcha.
Just showing a little bit of a cutscene, since this isn't too specific to the full like overarching Kingdom Hearts lore. But this is when we're reintroduced back to meeting Hercules again in Thebes right now. So the Hercules world essentially takes you on like, the earth part of Mount Olympus into Mount Olympus itself, and then you're on Earth in Thebes when it's under attack by the
Just a second.
Which is so cool because normally it's just we've gone to the Colosseum.
Yeah.
So it's really expanding for that whole world.
Yeah, Hercules is one of the few returning worlds this time
You
around.
guys are here.
And yeah,
Sora,
the first game was the
Donald,
Colosseum, like you said.
Goofy.
The second world, there's a
You
Colosseum
literally
that's in the
dropped
underworld,
in.
essentially.
Gotta
When you're
say,
going down there, you
I'm
never really get to
impressed.
see like the gods and the earth
Like
aspects
the
of Hercules
catch.
as much, which I
Yeah,
really appreciate
thanks,
this time
Herc.
around, getting to see all that.
But
It's
what's going
really cool,
on?
and I don't want to spoil it, but essentially after you complete the Hercules world, and a lot of worlds function this way, go back to this world and see how Thebes changes.
Take a
because
guess.
The world is actually, like right
Starts
now,
with
Yeah.
an H.
everything's on fire. It is
Ah,
all a mess. But by
I
the
get
end
the
of the
picture.
story of this world,
Actually,
spoilers, but
we
like not
bumped into
really,
the
you
H-ster on the
help
way
the
here.
world.
Yeah.
Things go pretty well.
He said
And so if you
something
come
about
back,
conquering the
it's in a
whole
different state.
cosmos.
Which I
Okay.
really appreciate like that.
All of it, huh?
Very
Nice
cool.
of him to show a
But yeah, I
little
want to bring this
self-restraint.
cutscene up just as an example
Well,
of like how
whatever
great
he's
the
planning,
animation is,
I'll
and
send
like,
him
how
running
much they're
back
capturing,
across
especially
the
something like
sticks.
this where it was a 2D movie, but capturing
That's our
like,
Herc.
the essence of these Disney characters and how they do that so continuously throughout, and how the art design is different for each one.
Mm.
Like it's pretty amazing.
We almost get a look at like what Hercules would have been if it was a Pixar movie.
Yes, yeah. There's a very like Pixar sensibility
Hmm.
there. As I'm going through. So yeah, save points obviously return. What's funny is in old Kingdom Hearts games, and I kind of miss it, there used to be like 99 save points. You only get like 9 this time around.
Okay.
Probably saves are bigger. I don't know how technology works. And then of course the Moogle shop returns, so you can hang out with your good Moogle friend. You can buy, sell. There's a workshop where you can synthesize things. We probably have no materials, so can't synthesize at the moment. But what's cool about this is there are also a bunch of collector's goals that you can attain, and they're basically just you get rewards for synthesizing a bunch or finding specific materials and things like that. So you can go through all that. And then there's also your updated material list as you go.
Very cool.
Um,
Looking over here in the chat, Night Strike asks, "Is it coming to PC?"
As far as we know, no. We've also asked, in the past, we've actually spoken to Square Enix, specifically to
So,
Nomura, the
Sora,
franchise creative director,
there a
and
reason you guys are
Tai
visiting?
Yasue, the co-director of Kingdom
I'm
Hearts 3,
guessing it's
about
not just for the cheese and
whether
olives.
these games specifically
yeah.
would come to Switch, because
sounds like
obviously
somebody
with this coming to
forgot.
Xbox, this is the first time Kingdom Hearts has been on the Xbox platform, and
I
there have
just
been Kingdom
took
Hearts
my
games
time
on
remembering.
Nintendo platforms in the past. It seems like a good
Herc,
fit, but as of
I
right now,
came
they
here so I could
announced no
ask you
plans.
something.
They have no
Ask me?
intentions of like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're going to jump right
Do
onto
you
production
remember
as
the
soon as
last
we're
time
done
we
with
were
this. Like,
together?
there's no confirmed plans in
were
the works. I
feeling
hope it's
down
still
and
a
out.
possibility. We know that
How'd you
obviously
get your strength
Square is
back?
putting efforts
when you
into the
jumped
Switch
in and
as a
saved
system
Meg?
to support, so my hope would be that. But like, the collections
That's
aren't even
tough.
on Xbox One, whereas
Right.
they are
All
on
I
PS4.
know is that she was in
so-
trouble.
Right now, like the
Suddenly,
ideal Kingdom Hearts
I
experience
wanted to
to play
save her with
everything is
all my
still on
heart,
PS4.
but
This game
it's
still
not
doesn't
like I
play
could
on
tell
the
you
Xbox
how.
One or One X, so you're not wrong to go.
Oh man,
Another
What's
question
wrong?
here from
all my strength is gone from me
Robbie
too.
Catman TV.
That's why I need
What
you.
worlds do you
because I
wish
was
added?
hoping you might have a solution or something.
Ooh, so actually
I'm
we're
sorry,
thinking
Sora.
of brainstorming a thing, and I actually would like to get your input on this. So we'll brainstorm this right now. We're gonna do sort of like a DLC we would want from Kingdom Hearts 3, like essentially the world we know and want to see. And obviously, like Marvel and Star Wars are the go-to answers, and that would be really cool. I would love to see them remake a world or
Let's
two
talk
from
later.
Kingdom Hearts 1 or
Right.
Kingdom Hearts 2 in
Once
this
we've
art
dealt
style
with
with this
these
fidelity.
guys.
Because I think something like the Halloween Town world, looking as good as this does, would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
And
in-
that would have been my answer, 100%.
I-
Because I'm much more nostalgic for even like Lion King and Aladdin, and seeing some of those worlds would be amazing.
Yeah,
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, knowing we've seen like so many Disney franchises represented. I'd be curious to see like what they could do with their Robin Hood world or something like that, or even like Sword in the Stone. Just like some of maybe the more like off-kilter choices. I know a lot of people have asked for from like the early 2000s-ish era of Disney. What is it? Atlantis, The Lost Empire, and Treasure Planet. I think Treasure Planet could be a really cool aesthetic for this, especially with like the size of these worlds. I could see them doing something really cool there. But like that plays into a certain era of Disney nostalgia they haven't really touched. So I'd be curious if they ever really want to go there. Like they did have Chicken Little as a summon in Kingdom Hearts 2. But other than that, like that early 2000s-ish world isn't really work. I would love to see at least something from Princess and the Frog, because I think the art style of that game or that movie is gorgeous. And I think it'd be really cool to see that adapted.
Yeah. As far as the worlds that are in the game, it sounded like you really liked the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, that was the one that surprised me the most, because so Port Royal is a world in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I thought it was fine. It was a good world. I don't really have super fond memories of it. I loved Pirates way more back then too than I do now. Like the first Pirates movie was one of my favorite action movies for years. That franchise has gone places in the movies that I don't enjoy. So that one, I was not really expecting to love it, but it plays like a mini Assassin's Creed. Essentially, Sora gets to pilot his own ship, captain his own ship, and you get to sail around the seas, and you can go from island to island, or like there are big rock structures. You can hop off the ship at any point, just dive into the water. But when you go to the islands, each of them has hidden stuff. There are hidden coves or like things for you to collect. You can upgrade your ship. It's a pretty basic like, upgrading system, but you can level your ship up. There's ship combat. You can. There's some sky combat in a few certain scenarios. It's so like massive, and then there is like a Port Royal town that you can explore too.
That level of depth, is that in other worlds as well, or is that pretty much sort of
there is and there isn't. So like every world in this game is definitely larger and more robust than really any other Kingdom Hearts world. But I think the two best exemplars of it are the Pirates world and San Francisco, which gives you like a large section of that city to explore. Which one, the Big Hero 6 San Francisco aesthetic is like one of my favorite fictional cities ever. So getting to fly around there and like hang out with Baymax and stuff, or just run through the streets. Like it's so cool to be able to see this large expanse of it.
Yeah.
It makes finding things like when you want to collect everything like treasures or the hidden Mickey lucky emblems in there. It makes that really tough because I'm so used to having a more confined space. So I'm getting used to that, but I think they're really interesting attempts at widening the franchise, and I wish they would do that a little more.
Yeah.
Whereas things like the Frozen and Tangled worlds, I think they're gorgeous worlds. Like the art style and the direction and everything looks amazing, but like especially in the Frozen world there's like a bit of an ice palace-y area, but then you're also just in the hills for a lot, and it's like I only could see the same sort of frozen hills so many times before I was like, I'm not into this world as much, as pretty as it is and as cool as it is. It just wasn't quite the same. But like the Toy Story world is really cool. You're toy sized, so you're in a giant toy store, which functionally isn't a huge space, but because of how small you are is, which I love. And then Hercules is like a good introduction to, I think, this story. What have you seen, like, obviously having not played it, which of the worlds are interesting you most?
You know, I didn't think I'd be saying it, but I think the Pirates of the Caribbean, just with the sort of the comparisons with Black Flag and that similarity. And even seeing the cutscenes, I was like, hold on a second, like, that looks like really close to live action, like weirdly close, but yet it still seemed to fit. It was very strange.
Yeah, so what they do really well that I appreciate is for every world, obviously, they'll change Sora, Donald, and Goofy's aesthetic a little bit, and whether that's like a full-on costume change or just a slight difference, you usually notice it. In the Pirates world, to match the real-life aesthetic, Sora, Donald, I'm going to skip this one. Obviously, we've seen Maleficent and Pete in the games, are in the game, but I don't want to show you what's going on with them in the scene. Anyway, in the Pirates world, like, Donald has real feather textures, like you see it on his body, and Joe Scrubbles, one of our UK editors, and I, when we went to Japan to see some of the game before release, he made the joke of like, this is probably the most realistic Donald Duck you've ever seen in any property.
Yeah.
It's a little unsettling, but it works really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to see those like attentions to detail play out in a large scale. And just small things like this, like there's a little Herc statues everywhere. If you come back, I don't know if you can actually find them on the first run. It didn't on my first run, but they're definitely there when you come back. There are a number of Herc statues you can collect as sort of a side mission in this world, which is just like a cool little addition in the way that like they keep coming expanding add stuff. But yeah, right now we're going to be going through a lot of battles. We'll be playing this opening for a little bit, and then we can jump to see
Really quick update.
Yes.
The winner of what is the best Kingdom Hearts theme is in fact Simple and Clean over on the IGN chat.
All right.
What was
88% of the vote.
How much?
88% of the vote.
That's, yeah.
I mean, granted, there were like maybe 5 or 6 votes.
So that skews the numbers a little bit on that percentage. But you said 500 or 600 votes. That's pretty incredible. Mitchell. What was number 2?
Let me see.
Or did they both have like 1 vote each?
I don't think I can check.
Okay. We'll just say it was Face My Fears. Yeah, I like Face My Fears a lot more than Don't Think Twice, which is the other new song that Yutada Hikaru recorded for this game. I like it a lot. I think Face My Fears is such a jam
Yeah.
that it's hard to. But a few other things as we're going through on the combat, and if there's anything you see fit for
Yeah.
sure. I love just like, again, because of they're on the PS4 now. Like it's been so long since we've seen like real technological jumps in Kingdom Hearts gameplay like this. So things like when Sora gets set on fire and the way he's reacting to it and the way he's moving with it, there's just such a fidelity to it that I appreciate mid-combat.
Yeah.
Versus just like, oh, he got hit and is taken out first. Like there's a lot of life to the combat in a way that I love.
How about the Keyblade Transformations? That's a pretty big.
Oh,
thing.
I love the Keyblade
Yeah.
transformation so much. We'll get to those when we jump to
Okay.
a few of the worlds for sure. We're also going to get to some sledding right here. But yeah, the Keyblade transformation. So every world's Keyblade transforms into basically has like 2 evolutions to it, and they're so fun because they change the way both you fight hand to hand, but also the way magic operates. So for example, like the Hercules one will change to a shield. But you essentially like can slingshot that shield around the world, like as you're fighting with people. So it's both hand to hand, but also a bit of a range attack weapon, which is really cool. Whereas like the Keyblade from Toy Story turns into a toy hammer, and you can use that one as essentially like area of effect attacks. Like, hit the ground with a huge ground pound sort of thing, or like there's a dual pistols one, and that you can do a ton of range shooting. So there's a lot going on with those, and they change the way you're acting, but also change the way, like I was saying, the magic. So when you're using the hammer one, for example, you swing the hammer around you and it creates like a force field of fire around you instead of you shooting at fire. and stuff
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's really cool. I
Yeah.
love that stuff so much, and it's a great addition. I really hope, like, if and when we see more Kingdom Hearts, and I absolutely think we will, I hope they keep that stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a cool, like, switch up to a thing that is so standard to the franchise of the Keyblade combat and makes it just really nice.
Seems just like a smart way to integrate combat variation without like sort of adding too much, like another whole layer.
Yeah, it doesn't like fundamentally change the way you play the game, but it allows you to tweak your skills a little bit and
Right.
tweak your focus. So like, you can at any time have 3 Keyblades slotted. That sort of can change
So
through.
you don't have to go to the menu.
No,
Okay.
not every time. So you are limited, and obviously, like when you're in battle, you can't go to those menus.
Right.
So if you're in a battle, you're in a battle for that. But it is nice to be like, okay, this one, and they all have different stats, and you can upgrade all the Keyblades and increase their stats. So, for example, I always keep like a magic-focused Keyblade and an attack-focused one, and then like a balanced one.
Okay.
So that's just the way I play. But like, if you want to just go all in on magic, you can have ones that have like 4 attack and 9 magic stats to it, and just really, really get fast.
Okay.
So here we're gonna see one of the team-up commands. This is Donald and I shooting off a boat. And just like stuff like that will pop up so often in combat, and it's like it's hard not to make combat look fun to me. Though I'm probably doing a pretty good job of making it not look fun right now with how few abilities I have. But yeah, as you get further into the game, you just always have options and things like, you know, there are standard 3 levels of magic. So you get like Fire, Fyra, and Fyraga. There's a 4th level that you get as a basically a command that will come in randomly if you've been using a magic prompt enough.
Okay.
So, like, if you use fire a ton, the Fyraza command will show up. Fyraza, I don't know. But anyway, like, that one will show up.
Gotcha.
So anyway, we just saved these people. They're very happy.
They look thrilled.
Yep. You can see the emotions spread across their face.
And so when you have Disney party members, you don't have to swap out Donald or Goofy?
No, you never
Okay.
have to swap out now, which is very nice because you never have to, like, sacrifice people's leveling
Right.
to have another party member in it. And so you get all the benefits of having, like, there's a Hercules-specific team-up that we'll get later in this level that we can do from the melee combat. While there's also, you don't lose access to the Donald and Goofy team, which is really nice. So I actually took the wrong path there because just to, like, show off the intentions of this world, we're in this little side area. You can go through and you can pick up that treasure.
We got a question that I'm actually very curious about. Shiva Jones on Twitch says, what do you guys make of Sora's voice in the game? How old is he now?
I forget the exact age, and I'm sure someone can bring that up in one of the chats. Oh no, I went the wrong way. No, come back. There we go. I think it's really funny and great that Haley Joel Osment is still doing this voice, even though he is 30.
Yeah.
And Sora is ostensibly 16, I think, maybe 16 or probably
think
not
he's
16.
16.
Yeah, 16 sounds about right.
Have you noticed a difference in Kingdom Hearts 2 versus Kingdom Hearts 3 in his voice?
A little bit for sure. I mean, definitely the biggest change for me was Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
Because, like, that was when Haley Joel Osment went through
Yeah.
puberty pretty apparently. Whereas, like, when he came into 2, it was like, why does Sora sound like he might have a drinking problem already? Like, what's going on there? But it's not a huge difference for me, and I don't mind it. There are definitely lines where sometimes I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like the Sora I'm as familiar with, but most of the time in story cutscenes, it's still Sora. And I love that Haley Joel Osment has still been with this character for this long. Like, he's a much different actor than he was back in the day. Like, right now, he does guest spots on Comedy Bang Bang, and will do, like, a random stint on Silicon Valley and things like that, whereas, like, back in the day, he was the kid in AI and the kid in Sixth Sense, and that's what we do. So it's nice to see him have evolved with this character, because he also talked to the fact that he, since he's gotten so much more into comedy, he also like could improv a little more as Sora, and like that's not a thing I think of as like Sora maybe trying to be funny or improv or have a sense of humor to him.
Yeah.
And I think him being older and knowing who Sora is and everything that's going on, I think that lends a lot to the character. But I enjoyed it a lot this time. We'll let this play out because this is not hugely spoiler. Yeah, this one's okay to play.
Okay.
Someone help!
It really is wild seeing Kingdom Hearts
Where did all
with
these
such
monsters come from?
crisp visuals and just a high fidelity.
Right? It looks so
Yeah.
great. Someone posted an image or a clip from one of the earlier Olympus cutscenes in Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2, and someone's like, look at them, listen to the crowd, they're going wild, and then it cuts to the crowd, and it's just like the empty 2D texture of the crowd, but then the voices come up, and like, I understand for the limitations at the time at the PS2, like, they didn't want to spend the resources on that, I totally understand, but like, looking back at that now versus what they do with the world this time around, it's like night and day, it's crazy to see this happen. But yeah, so right now with the combat, we're working with pretty much just the basics of Sora's main Keyblade and his couple of magic. You do not really have your magic at the beginning of this game, so like for those who may not know or those who may need a refresher, this game starts out essentially with Sora having lost a lot of his abilities because he was tempted by the darkness in Kingdom Hearts from Drop Distance. That was the 3DS release. Because of that, he's essentially come to Hercules' world specifically looking to train and get back his abilities, and as he goes through the story, he gains them back and some.
Okay. Kind of that trope of the hero that lost all his powers.
Yes. Yeah, which as I was writing my review, Dan Stapleton, our reviews editor, was like, is that they're really resorting to that cliche? And I'm like, well, Dan, you don't understand. You haven't played the 9 other games.
Before.
Yeah, like it's very much clearly part of that. And I think like it plays really well into the idea that like Sora could be tempted by the darkness because Sora for so long was like the purest person. Like there was no way Sora could ever really go to the dark side. And to have even that moment of possibility, I think shows character depth in a way that like some people may not always get.
Yeah. Now, how do you think the game does in balancing sort of these mini stories with each world and then the overarching plot? 'Cause I feel like with this one, it's sort of the culmination of like just all of like the whole Xehanort thread like building to this.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of urgency there, but yet you're still going off to do these like mini business.
Yeah, that was one of the weirdest things to both write about when I couldn't be spoilerish at all, and I'm still not going to spoil anything, but it's weird to like, I'm both frustrated by it and okay with it because at the end of the day, like that has very much been how this series has acted since day one. So when the main story gave way to other things, I wasn't surprised that the Disney stories would take the focus, even though, excuse me, there was this overarching plot.
Right.
But at the same time, because this is very clearly the culmination of things, when I was, 2.5 hours into a world of like Frozen or Tangled, and it was a story I knew so well because I'd seen the movies, I was kind of like, okay, but what about like, aren't we supposed to be like really importantly trying to collect a bunch of people before Xehanort takes over everyone and the worlds are destroyed? Like, there was a little bit more of that tension, like frustration with that in this game than I have in past games. But that said, usually when the worlds took risks with their stories, I usually appreciated it and was okay with giving more time to them.
Okay.
So something like San Francisco tells an original world story, or the Toy Story world does, or I'm trying to think, God, it was one of my favorites, or even something like Hercules right now, where it's this totally fresh original world take on it with a slight callback to the Hercules movies. It works better because I'm also experiencing something new. Whereas like in Frozen or Tangled, as pretty as it is and as fun as it is to see Donald and Goofy and Sora interact with those people, I already know how those stories go exactly. And so when I'm waiting for so many other things to unfold, it doesn't quite hold as well.
Okay.
And a thing that I talked about where it's like a blessing and a curse, this game looks amazing and it looks as close to the movies as it could possibly. So when the cutscenes don't play out quite as well, you feel that tension, like you can tell the difference that there's a little bit of a Disney spark missing. But like at the same time, it's still really fun to see these little interactions, to see Donald and Goofy interacting with Rex and Ham and Woody and Buzz, and like Buzz being like having strange interactions with Donald is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was very much like I liked it and I also was frustrated by it.
Okay.
Which is a non-conclusive answer.
No.
That's what I aim to get. Let's do another team.
As far as sort of the resolution to the story, did you find it satisfying? Did you feel like it was worth sort of the wait?
That also is like a loaded question. So
Yeah.
for reference, as this is going on, I know that I think it was supposed to launch yesterday in the US. I think the Epilogue cutscene went live early today. I have not seen it yet. I have not read what happens in it. I'm staying away from all that stuff. So I haven't seen that. And I haven't seen, of course, the secret video, but the review was very much written with the story as completed in the main campaign.
Right.
And I was really satisfied with it. I wrote a lot about how I was satisfied, but because we've had so much time to ruminate on it and how things would go, I was never really surprised by it. Like the interactions and the revelations or the twists or when certain characters appeared versus when reunions happened or where big emotional moments happened. I feel like I could have guessed all of those or written them myself.
Okay.
Because they were just... I've had a lot of time to think about this, and
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of stories, so I
Right.
kind of know how a story like this would go.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make them any less enjoyable to watch. Like my girlfriend was watching me play the game the whole time, and she was like, "Yeah, you just had like this big dopey grin on your face for the last like 4 hours," because like it was just nice to see it all play out, even though it was exactly how I thought it would play.
Mm-hmm. Now your girlfriend, has she played the other games?
No, so she's a
Okay.
huge Disney fan. Huge Disney Parks fan, loves all the movies and everything, but she's never played a Kingdom Hearts game. I started showing her a bit of the first game, and then I just tried throwing her into 3 and was like, let's see how this goes. And I was like, so how much did you understand by the end of it? She's like, 40%?
Hey, that's not too bad.
Pretty
I
good.
probably only understand 40%, to be honest, myself.
It'll happen. And to be
Yeah.
fair, she did miss the first like 2 or 3 hours, so there was a bit of recap that she totally missed.
Okay.
So she understood a fair bit, having not seen
Yeah.
a lot of important stuff. But yeah, like just from someone's like spectacle example of it, she just loved watching like all these silly little interactions, or watching like Donald appear in the Tangled world and interact with Maximus, the horse, and things. Like there's all these fun interactions for Disney fans that I think are still.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of people ask me like, "Hey, my kids love Disney. They're 6, so obviously they've never seen these other games. Can I just start them at 3?" And like, yeah, they'll get the Disney stuff. They'll enjoy it. You may have to explain why all these men in black robes are fighting. But
Yeah.
other than that, like, I think they'll get the gist of it.
Okay.
We got a question from Vinny on the IGN chat. I played some of the previous Kingdom Hearts games on hard mode. They weren't much more challenging than normal mode. How does Kingdom Hearts 3 hard mode compare? Which we're playing right now, right?
Yes. So first of all, congrats on being good at games. Yeah, I've had like different experiences with Proud mode. I know definitely when I was younger and played Proud for the first time, I just got my butt kicked constantly. But I would say like, so I haven't played a full run through of Proud. Right now we're about like half hour into a run. I've probably played maybe like 2 hours of Proud at home. For reference, this is a big thing for me. We can talk about it a bit. There aren't like difficulty-related trophies, so you don't have to worry about that essence of it. But so far in my experience of Proud, given like about 3 hours, it's not been noticeably more challenging. It is nice. I found the basic version to be actually a little easy, like on normal. I was playing on normal for the review. I found it to actually be pretty easy. I only died once the entire game, and that was in the very final boss fight. So it was more for me playing it was about the spectacle of it. So if you're looking for a challenge, I think you won't really get one until toward the end game. even on Proud, but I could imagine if you're not really keeping at level as you play through on Proud, I could imagine it getting a little bit tougher.
Okay.
For reference, as you can see in the background right there, that is obviously Mickey's head. There are dozens of these hidden throughout the game, lucky emblems they're called in the game, hidden Mickeys, as you would know if you visit Disney parks. You can take photos of these with your gummy phone. We actually don't have access to the gummy phone right now, but you want to catalog all these because taking photos of these is how you will unlock the secret video,
Oh, okay.
which they're adding to the game.
Yeah.
They haven't given specific numbers as far as I know, but if you're on beginner, I think you need to pretty much capture all of them. If you're on normal, you have to capture a fair bit of them, and if you're on expert, proud, you have to capture the least.
Okay. So there's an epilogue, and then there's also a secret video after the epilogue.
Yeah, so they just didn't add the epilogue in pre-release, I guess. Concerns over the game leaking and all those things, wanted to keep it out of people's hands too early.
Justified concerns.
Yes, absolutely. So the epilogue you just get for beating the game. Like after you see the ending through, you will have access to the epilogue. The secret movie, however, as like a staple of Kingdom Hearts games, but it's the qualifications for this one are a little different because of the graphics. But that one, I believe, is getting added. So the epilogue was supposed to be added the 30th. I think it's out today already for some people, and then the epilogue was supposed to be out the 31st, but we'll see if it got added.
Okay. Now, obviously, no spoilers or anything, but does it feel like there can be more after this? It doesn't really. I mean, from what you've seen without the epilogue or secret ending.
Alex.
I mean, there's money to be made here, but
that's. I mean, like. Just on a monetary level, like Square would be crazy to let this franchise die with this game as much as this is meant to be a culmination. But it's very much meant to be a culmination of the Dark Seeker saga, which is essentially everything focusing on Xehanort and the organization and yeah, there's absolutely room for this to go on. It's not like they don't end it in a way where it's like, and then the world was never heard from again in any capacity.
Well, because we've seen Sora be the focal point of like the core ones, and then we've seen other characters be the focal point of a lot of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's more story to be told for Sora, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can tell more story with Sora. Excuse me, if only for the fact that, like, again, he's only 16 in here, and he has a Keyblade Master, and like, given the context of the world and the way they've introduced it to us, he's a Keyblade Master for quite a while now, and like there's a certain responsibility that will come with that. Ooh, let's see if I can actually do this in the time limit on Proud. I did it at home, but we'll see if I can do it here. If I can't, we're just going to go to a new save. Sorry. But yeah, I think there's absolutely room for more to happen, and I'm curious to see where they go, because also I think like one of the most interesting things for me was that back cover and the mobile game, which is now Union Cross. Excuse me, talking too much. But I think that it introduces you to some of the earliest points of the timeline, and there's so much to work with there in terms of like new characters and new mythology to the Keyblade and all these things that I think you could probably make some interesting games and stuff just based on that stuff specifically.
Okay.
But I think also just going forward in the chronology, yeah, there's a lot.
Okay.
I don't think this will be the end of Kingdom Hearts as we know it. Whether it takes another 5 years for a game, we'll see, because like obviously as we're getting near the end of a console's life cycle, that may cause a bit of a delay in what we see, but like I hope they'll support this game with DLC. I hope we'll see, maybe a side thing as we get to the next console version.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room to play.
Okay. And you were telling me too, you think it won't be quite as long a wait for the next one, hopefully?
I would hope not. So like my thing is, part of it is like obviously on like a mainline home console, they, outside of 0.2, everything else was released for handhelds or for mobile and things like that. Now that they have all this experience with the PS4, like I would love, if they don't do a brand new one before this console life cycle goes away, I would hope they do an, excuse me, a new one pretty soon after on the new consoles. They're like, at this fidelity and at this level of complexity, there's just so much to work with, and there's so much Disney history to work with. I personally would love to see, like, don't get me wrong, I want a new Kingdom Hearts game. If they made a Kingdom Hearts 1 remake right now, if like that was the next announced thing, and they're like, hey, in 2 years, we're remaking Kingdom Hearts 1 in the Kingdom Hearts 3 engine, I'd be all for that. Like, take your time.
Be amazing.
That would look gorgeous and beautiful, and I would absolutely love that. But
yeah, then we would get our like Nightmare Before Christmas and all those other ones.
To see Agrabah and to see like what they could do with like the lush, deep jungle worlds, and like it just things where like the technology only let them do so much at the time. I think there's a lot you could do.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's take a look here at the chat. saw a question from Aviv Avraham in YouTube. Was asking, can you play as other characters? Now, I don't know if that's spoilery.
I will
we don't want to
say,
address that.
so like in terms of spoilers and everything, the way I operate on spoilers is if anything has been in a trailer or like preview events for this game, it is fair game for us to talk about. And in a trailer, a second playable character was shown. Like for the nicety of the stream, I'm not going to spoil who it was or anything. You could probably take a good guess, but they did show you will play as a second character, and I can confirm you do play as another character at least at one point in the story.
And this isn't the first time we've been able to do that.
No, yeah, like there was a full, in Chain of Memories, there was essentially a full storyline for Riku that you could play as. There have been the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2. You played as Roxas for the first few hours. So there is precedence for it. I would say it's in there. And I will like hold off on its, like, I don't want to say how I felt about its inclusion just now because I think that could also be inferred as a spoiler.
Right.
I don't want to do that for people who are just jumping into the game, who maybe are homesick playing it, or who are watching this while they can't play just yet. So we're going to go, this is a bigger enemy, this is probably the biggest one. You'll get to see an attraction for the first time. Like I said, I love these. So usually to get an attraction to happen, you'll see that like kind of circle with like green spikes appear on an enemy. That's, you have to hit an enemy with that before a timer runs out to be able to get the attraction you use. And so we'll show off the right now. So they all have intro sequences. You can skip the sequence if you get bored of it after the 100th time. I love seeing them. So yeah, the pirate ship works like this. It's essentially it's on an axis and it swings back and forth based on when you hit the attack button. If you're like, hey, this angle's really bad, you can move the camera to get a better angle. I didn't realize that for the first like 3 or 4 times I was playing with the pirate ship, and I'm like, ooh, this doesn't work that well. But yeah, you need a better shot. And you can also, as your... I didn't have it because the ability, I'm used to the ability being on. You have a finisher with each of the attractions, and I didn't get to use the finisher there because I have an auto finisher ability usually on, but we don't have it at this point in the game. But anyway, all of them can end in like a spectacular final attack that just destroys things. They are a little overpowered, but I like them still. Do I not have items? Crap. Okay. All right, we're showing rage for a while then. So, yeah, Sora can activate this cool form. You get all your health back when you're in the form. This is like the second form that comes with the Keyblade Transformation. I needed all my health back. So you can do this. It has the risk charge ability, which I can show off pretty close. So essentially, it uses a little bit of your energy to help you attack better with a little bit of strength. This guy's almost dead, so we're good.
Cool. I noticed in some of the previous games, I had a few issues with the camera. I'd have to kind of babysit it a bit. Is that an issue here, or is it pretty smart?
I know some people have had issues with the camera. I generally haven't. There have been some times where, like, if you're locked onto an enemy, it can get stuck in a corner every now and then. But because the areas are usually so big, it's almost never a problem. And I don't mean this in a bad way because I still enjoy it so much, but because so much can happen where, like, you don't need to necessarily worry about your character as much with the camera angle when you're in the pirate ship attraction or things like that. So occasionally the camera will not be great, but it doesn't stop you from still hitting it.
Right.
But it's still like, it does get hooked. I will say there's like the final Keyblade transformation for the Hercules one, which I won't spoil what it is unless we show it off, then it will be spoiled a little bit. But essentially that one has a very specific camera angle that I think does not work well.
Okay.
So that one's a little awkward. What time are we about, Mr. I can transfer over to a different level now. So we're about 50 minutes in. I'm going to transfer over because I don't want to spoil the Realm of the Gods.
Do you need me to switch to your... is it going to be a spoiler to show the load game button?
It won't be a spoiler. It's just not the most exciting screen. If you want to
Alright.
show our beautiful faces, I never mind that.
Let's do that.
But hey, let's go to the title screen, see what happens. Hopefully this didn't delete all my saves.
One thing that I read in your review that really surprised me was that the gummy ship was like really engaging and fun.
Yes, yeah. We can definitely show that off a little bit too once we get through Airworld. And when you're good to go back, Mitchell, you can transfer us back in. Thank you. So yeah, the gummy ship is this time around basically 360-degree open space.
Okay.
And when like I said, we got to go to Japan to talk to a couple members of the team. Square Enix was very gracious in letting us speak to a lot of developers on Kingdom Hearts 3, and they talked to us a little bit about, we spoke to Tai Yasue, the co-director, and he mentioned how some of the Gummy Ship was essentially being developed by the Einhander developers who developed that space combat game, Einhander.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, they know their stuff. And so it's not as on rails as the combat used to be. I didn't like I was very used to the Gummy Ship when I was a kid, so I didn't really have problems with it, but obviously a lot of people have. And in one, like going back to the original games, Gummy Ship and seeing how bare bones it looks and plays in comparison to now is tremendous. So that one was purely on rails. Everything was very blocky in the Gummy Ship blocks. Kingdom Hearts 2, they upped the look of enemies and everything, but it was still essentially an on rails fight. This time around, you're in 360 space. You can just go from world to world, but you can also, if you want, hang around, and there are like treasure spheres where you have to essentially solve like a quick puzzle to unlock a bunch of treasure. There are hidden things all around. You can find like in the way there are the hidden Mickeys, there are constellations that you can take photos of. And then there are fights that you can jump into that include on rails combat, but it's because it's optional most of the time, and because you can opt into it. I never really minded it nearly as much as I did when I'm playing the other games.
Okay.
So just the flow to it is so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed the Gummy Ship this time. Right now you're seeing the Shooting Star Keyblade. This is a very early Keyblade. It's not like a huge spoiler, and you've seen it in some of the trailers for myself. This is the one that's like a set of dual pistols, and then it transforms it into what is essentially a rocket launcher. I'm going to make sure I don't get rid of my finisher.
Do you have any agency over the order in which you tackle the world?
Yes.
Okay.
So usually they're open to you about like 2 at a time.
Okay.
Usually they're open about 2 at a time. I think Hercules you're automatically set into, like you have to do that one first. And then you are set into another world due to story, but then you have the choice between Kingdom of Corona and Toy Box. So the Tangled and Toy Story.
Okay.
So you can do those whenever you want. Either or. And then as you get into the next set, you have 2 as an option, and then another 2 open up after you beat those 2. But they are level specific, so it'll be like suggested combat level, level 4 or whatever. Things like that. For reference, if you've seen, we have it a lot on IGN, so I didn't want to jump into that. We've shown you a lot of the Toy Story World demo before, which led up to essentially this room in there, the toddler's room. So we're not going to show off that bit of the demo that you've probably seen before in many iterations. Didn't want to show off that. I just want to show off in general the like depth of this world that we're in now. This game store is closed. It does open later, but I won't tell you why. What's really cool about it is Space Cats. They're a fake game. All the fake games in here are great, and I actually want to go to one of those. So let's see.
I got an important question.
Yes.
Do you ever get sick of You've Got a Friend in Me?
Yes. I hate to say it, but there was a moment. So the Toy Story World is like pretty long, I think, or you could spend a lot of time in here. And there was a moment like 3 hours in, especially once I revisited it for like another hour or 2. And I was like, man, I love the song. I don't need to hear it for a couple of years. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think like I love the soundtracks in this game in particular, and just in general in the series. That's one of the ones where it gets repetitive a little too much for me. But in general, yeah.
I kind of had that same thought with the Pirates theme in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Oh yeah, and that theme is amazing. Like that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite, just like get you ready for combat themes. And yeah, when you hear that one enough, it's like, okay, I've gotten my fill here. I'm gonna try not to get beat up right now. But what essentially you're seeing right now, if you're wondering why I'm not third person with a Keyblade, this is the gameplay gimmick, essentially as they were calling them pre-release for the Toy Story World, or these Gigas, these mechs. So you can jump into them. There are 3 different models. I'll try to get this guy and jump into him. I'm in the punchy focused one. His main ability is to tackle. Excuse me. There are 3 different ones, so I'm jumping into like the Omega one that essentially has these massive cannons that you can unload a lot of damage on enemies too. So his big thing is you can launch those. But essentially, you can jump into these guys. It's a lot easier to combat. There are both the Gigas that you fight against, and then also like these guys come to life occasionally and are much bigger enemies. If you're fighting them as just Sora, Donald, and Goofy, especially on like a harder difficulty, you will probably get your butt kicked a little bit. So you want to be inside a Giga when you're fighting in the Toy Story World, or at least large things.
Yeah.
But like this is a world-specific gameplay hook for this world, so you won't have combat like this in any of the other worlds. Or like, for example, in the Pirates world, you're not going to have ship combat in another world.
Right. So each world has its own sort of unique thing.
Yeah, for the most part. Some of them, it's light. I think saying like there are gameplay spins and some of them is a bit of a stretch.
Okay.
Which disappointed me a little bit, if only because they made such a big deal about each world having these sorts of things, and then you get to like, without spoiling it too much, like the Monsters Inc. world doesn't really have something like this. And that was a little disappointing, if only because I was expecting it for each world.
Yeah.
I mean, I think had I not been saddled with that expectation, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But nonetheless, like, a lot of them are usually pretty fun to try, save for the downhill sled.
Okay.
That's in Frozen. But anyway, I wanted to bring you... Am I being hit again? Guys, I'm trying to buy toys. Stop it. No, I'm still doing pretty good. So yeah, this helps you really just like learn these things. But yeah, as you're seeing right now in terms of like enemy variety, usually it's dependent on each world. Like there are, if you're a fan of the franchise, so Heartless, Unversed, and Nobody's all return as enemies you can fight. And there's a really nice bestiary that you can go into. We can actually take a look at that in a little bit. But usually it's pretty relevant to specific worlds. Like if you're fighting in a certain world, it'll just be the Heartless. If you're fighting in another world, it'll be Unversed. If you're fighting in another, it's probably Nobody's with some Heartless.
Was that the city I saw over there?
Yes, that's what I wanted to bring you over to. So yeah, there's this wonderful... I saw it in the E3 demo, and I'm really glad I made it into the final build, obviously. You got these big toys here I can pop out. You see basically like the summons.
The only Final Fantasy nod in the whole game.
There are a couple
Okay.
that I don't want to spoil, but there
Yeah.
aren't many. And then like
Okay.
you can see these toys over here are like all the summons basically and bosses and things. You get Bahamut, Alexander, I think Ifrit, yeah, Odin is over here. So yeah, this is just like a nice nod.
Okay.
There is definitely a lack of Final Fantasy in this game. I know a lot of people have been asking, and I've tried to stay away from spoilers too much, but now that the game is out, you'll probably hear about it very soon. There is not much Final Fantasy in here. If you came in like thinking, oh, it's like in the old games where Cloud is an enemy I fight for a bit, and then maybe he's a good guy, who knows, and then Leon and Aerith are all with me. It's not like that anymore. It's very much a focus on the original Kingdom Hearts characters because there are so many now, and then also the Disney characters.
So how do you feel about that?
So I was never a huge Final Fantasy person. As much as I love Kingdom Hearts, I just never got into the series. I've loved a few of the ones that I've played, but I just never like stayed up with it. And I came to it pretty late. It's a bummer, if only because like they did play an important role in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 very specifically. Like they did matter a lot to Sora's journey early on, and I wish there was a little bit more of a nod to them than there is in this. But that said, like, there's only so much you could fit into this game, and I understand that, like, from that storytelling perspective.
Right.
But it is a bummer. It was originally a core part of Kingdom Hearts' DNA, and it's clearly not any longer.
Yeah.
And that's a transition. We'll have to see, like, I think that means going forward, Final Fantasy is really not part of this. Like, if you want your Final Fantasy fix, hopefully the Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out before we're all dead.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. Actually, speaking to interviews I used to do, we spoke to Tetsuya Nomura back at E3 last year, and he mentioned, like, yeah, this has been his really big focus for now, but hopefully now he's moving back to focus on the Final Fantasy VII Remake now that Kingdom Hearts is like, actually out the door.
Right.
So we'll see if that game actually comes out
Right.
anytime soon. I hope so. But
Yeah.
as we're going through, I do want to bring people to a little bit of a thing. Are there any other questions in the chat?
Yes. Again, kind of game-specific stuff that we might need to sort of dance around a little bit.
The
But
Batman world is alive.
from, from Twitch, lots of Crash 41 asks about your favorite bosses. Are there any? That's probably a little too spoilery to get into.
I can speak to it a little bit. I
Okay.
was really hoping you were going to say Crash Bandicoot when you said
Yeah.
the username. I was like, yes, finally Crash, as he should be in Kingdom Hearts. I think, so yeah, like boss fights have always been a huge part of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. And I think like in terms of if you want big scale, big boss battles where it's like, man, there's a lot of HP to down in these guys with multiple stages, I don't think you will be disappointed. That said, like, again, having played on normal, I was not really ever challenged by a lot of the battles. It was more like an endurance more than a like testing my skill until the end. So the end, like in other Kingdom Hearts games, I can come back to it probably later while I'm talking. Like other Kingdom Hearts games, there's a huge end gauntlet of bosses to fight. Oh no, am I going to a story scene? Darn it. We'll go back to that. Anyway, skipping that. Anyway, we might get into a boss battle here. Speaking of.
All right.
Okay, yeah, we can avoid that. Or we can show a boss battle. Let us know in the comments if you want to see this boss battle. It's been in some trailers, but I'm happy to skip it. Anyway, the end gauntlet of boss battles is really fun. Like, they tested my abilities a bit more. There's a lot more challenge to them in the way they fight. I had to adapt my skills a lot more too, whereas it felt usually with the other boss battles, as fun as they were and as cinematic as they were, I wasn't challenged by them.
Okay.
There's a really cool Tangled boss battle, which is in our video review. I know some people were unhappy about that in terms of like what we were allowed to show because it wasn't related to a main story plot point. We showed it, and apologies if you did feel spoiled by that, but that fight was pretty cool. Other than that, though, I don't want to go into too many spoilers about bosses. I do want to go over here, though, to one of these guys. So before launch, we talked about a thing called puddings. They are not called puddings in the game. I think it was a little bit of a mistranslation or lost in translation sort of thing. These are the flans. So there are 7 flans in the worlds located throughout, I think, the 7 main Disney worlds that you encounter. And each of them is a different challenge that you can engage in. I'm going to show it because it's not like a huge spoiler, but essentially these reminded me a lot of like the mushroom heartless guys that you would find in Kingdom Hearts 1, where it was like a game of Simon Says, of which spell to cast on them, and they'd be like, oh, I'm very hot, please fan me with blizzard. And it's like, well, all right, you weirdo. But anyway, this one, basically you have to catch a lot of the flan without getting hit by those bigger, meaner flans. But essentially you're trying to stack them as high as you can in this one. And so every flan works differently. They're all different mini games that you can engage in. This is a very like don't get hit minigame, whereas some are like take a bunch of good photos minigame. Another is like a combat minigame. So they vary. They're a fun little inclusion that I do think incorporates really well into the like. There's a lot to explore in this game. Like you can run through a world and think you've seen a lot, but you probably have maybe seen 40% of the world. Like there's usually a lot more treasures, hidden emblems, little things like this, or like the side mission in the Hercules world that I mentioned to go back and explore. And I love that incentive to go back. And they're also like, each gimmick usually has a high score minigame attached to it that you can go back and once you beat it, which I really appreciate. Oh, no, go away. There we go. Oh no, I don't like this. I don't like this.
This sure is something.
No! Oh, I'm sorry for spiking the mic. Oh, man.
Sorry, I did the same.
I was doing so... No! Oh, God.
This reminds me of just like being in a Disney store, like in the mall when I was younger, like just exploring.
Yeah.
It's I mean, just the size of the levels is so staggering compared to what I'm used to going back playing Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah, when you go back and play the original, like having played Kingdom Hearts 1 very specifically before this one, just to see the comparison, it's like night and day how big the worlds are and how much space you have to explore before you see a loading screen or something like that. It's crazy. Yeah, I love it a lot.
Very cool. Any other questions, guys?
I have a question. So we kind of went over the combat earlier. I think one of the things that kind of is a critique of Kingdom Hearts' combat is that it's very mashy. Is that kind of the same deal in Kingdom Hearts 3, would you say?
No, it's actually, so every time you fight, it turns into a 2D fighting game.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
Every single combat, like what you're seeing right now is actually 2D. It doesn't look it, but I'm fighting. Yeah, I know that's been a criticism kind of since the beginning, and I think there's definitely like, with the first game, I think it's a little slower, where I felt, or especially in this early part of the game, I think every Keyblade hit, like matters a little bit more. But I totally understand people who are like, it's 2-button masher, you're just hitting the X button 1,000 times. I get it. I think if you look at the combat that way, you're losing a lot of the enjoyment of it. And I guess, yes, if you're playing on normal and you're high enough level, you could probably just hit X a bunch and eventually you'll beat the bad guys. But like, especially in this game with how many combat options there are, if you just stick to hitting guys with your Keyblade, you're missing out on like 80% of the combat. Like there's so much fun stuff to do with the combat this time around that for me it was less about, oh, how quickly can I get through this match, and more like, how cool can I look during this match? For me, it was a lot about the visual flourishes. Is that talking around your question, Mitchell?
No, I think that's good.
I think, like, for me, it's really fun to say, okay, I'm going to use these 3 commands, and I'm going to use this Keyblade transformation. I'm going to try to crowd control this way and things like that. There's a lot more to it like that I think you could button mash your way through probably, but you'd lose out on a lot of what makes the combat cool.
How does the progression through combat work? Because, I mean, is it the same as other Kingdom Hearts games where you unlock skills as you level up, and then you only have a certain number of AP points that you can, set your loadout essentially?
Again, it's a 2D fighting game. No, so yeah, I can actually. Oh no, we're in the middle of combat, so let me get out of here. I can show a little bit about that off in the menus. Menus I know are not the most exciting, so we don't have to spend too much time there. But just to give you a sense, yeah, essentially, and this was one of my worries when I played at E3 because they gave us no access to any of this stuff. Abilities return, equipment returns, all that sort of stuff returns. So we're going to go to equipment. And so basically, Sora, I have 3 Keyblades, like I said. So you have the Hercules, the Shooting Star, and those are the only ones I have unlocked at this point in the save. You have armor, which is changing my defense and can change your elemental resistances. You have accessories, which can add to your strength, your magic, and your AP. Things like that. So, and you unlock more slots for those things as you level up. And it is still the standard leveling up to like 99 standard that you're used to. Everyone has their stuff, so you can see, like, I don't care what Woody and Buzz have. They can deal with their stuff. They're fine. Something like Sora's abilities, though, and I guess if you don't want to see any of the abilities, spoilers. Ooh, I don't have high jump enabled in this save. That's how old this save is. You can see the saves, and there's a lot of, like, AP management. I'd say with Sora. With Donald and Goofy, I almost never had a problem of having all of or maybe not one ability logged on. So almost everything they can do, I always had on. But with Sora, you do have to play a little more around with whether or not you can use all of his moves. Some are very specific, like it'll be, for example, like use this finisher when you're near Donald, use this finisher near Goofy, and things like that. So you may want to have certain things if you're more inclined to fight alongside Goofy, or if you're more inclined to fight alongside magical abilities with Donald and stuff like that. So there are a lot of options still with the abilities and everything. But yeah, that stays the same. How does stats look? And then yeah, this is basically your stats menu. So if you want to get into the nitty gritty of the RPG of it all, that's there. And then cuisine. So you may have seen the trailers. Remy runs a shop in Twilight Town. You can go cook at that shop, and you can cook essentially different items for stat boosts. And so they're temporary stat boosts. I don't know if I have any. Oh, I do have some, so I can put these on to show you. So you can see how these affect your basic abilities. Okay. And they're temporary. This isn't like for the full duration of the game. You'll see there's a little duration bar there. But essentially, I can put all this stuff together. I'll eat that meal. You can save that meal if you want for your favorites. All these wonderful things. These boosts will now stay active for 23 minutes.
Okay.
As I keep talking, by the way, Mitchell, I don't know if you want to pose this as a something. Why can't I think of words?
Poll?
Yeah, as a poll in the thread. Wow, I don't know how words work anymore. If you want to pose it as a poll, or if you feel I could just do it, we can jump into a boss fight. But
I think you should just go with your gut in this one.
Cool. This boss fight has been seen in trailers, so I'll show it off a little bit, and if I start dying, yeah, it's fine. We'll go to another save.
RSMRY Media says, but what are you going to talk about on Beyond now that the game is out?
Kingdom Hearts 4. No, we'll probably... So this week, you're watching this, we haven't recorded this week's Beyond. We will be doing a spoiler-free talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 specifically, and like all of our feelings about it. I know there's been a lot of Kingdom Hearts talk in the last 2 weeks, and my Kingdom Hearts Minute has been an ongoing thing for the last maybe couple months. Some people I know have enjoyed it. Some people have hated it. So good news, bad news if you enjoyed it. We're going to pull back on the Kingdom Hearts talk now that the game is out. But good news, we're talking about it this week. We'll probably go into a spoiler-filled chat maybe in a couple weeks after people have had time with the game, because games take time.
They say, but seriously, what's the next game you're excited about now that you've completed this?
Ooh. That has a release date or doesn't have a release date?
It's not mentioned. I would say let's hear
at least
both
2019.
Yeah, okay.
First of
Final
2019.
Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, right.
No, like things most recent. I'm really excited to play a little more Anthem.
Did you play some of the VIP?
I only got to play a little bit because of the issues, but I did play a bit at E3, and like you just get to be Iron Man. Like you're just Iron Man, and that's rad.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we're seeing this is a thing that essentially you get to replay. When you come back, this is like a high score thing you get to do in the Toy Story world, where we're basically just fighting a bunch of mechs, and they're all worth it so many points. But anyway, yeah, Anthem I think is probably the one I'm most excited for coming up soon. I really really am interested in Days Gone. Like any Sony first-party exclusive, I am willing to give the time of day to see what the hell is going on with it. And while like earlier looks, I was a bit more reserved. Seeing the recent trailers has got me really interested in how that game is going to play.
Yeah.
So I think that stuff for sure. Also, like on a side note, I really am interested in Concrete Genie.
Okay.
The end.
Yeah.
I know, just like we haven't seen a ton of that game.
Right.
It's a smaller Sony first-party game that we know about, but like it just looks rad, and I'm into the art style a bunch. So I'm excited to see that. I'm going to get hit really bad. We'll see how that goes. Mitchell, what are you looking forward to?
Oh man, so much. These next couple months are big for me. We got
February is crazy.
Yeah, we got Devil May Cry coming up in March, which
That's right.
I'm so excited. However excited you are for Kingdom Hearts 3, John, I'm excited for Devil May Cry 5.
I'm excited to hear you talk about it then, because I don't know that series well.
Yeah, that is my game. And also Sekiro is coming out soon. So
Right.
That's right.
I'm really excited for that as well.
I am very bad at their games from Softwares, so I will try it for an hour, appreciate what it's going for, and probably not play. But I do want to give it a shot. What about you, Alex? What do you
Well, I'm really looking forward to a lot of the Sony first-party exclusives that are still a bit further off.
that we don't know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding. So hopefully we'll learn a little more at E3.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
nice. We'll see, especially knowing that they're not there, but I could see Sony still doing their own side thing
Right.
around E3.
And like you said, with I'm blanking on it now.
Days Gone.
Days Gone. Yeah, just what we've seen of it recently, and sort of kind of clearing sort of the mystery behind it. Like, what even is this game besides being just like a zombie game? Yeah, using the world and just like the large. It's an open world game.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different than The Last of Us for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that one plays out.
Right.
Of course, the big thing I think everyone also has been asking me, at least in terms of like Kingdom Hearts 3, is even though this game is out, could we get Sora in Smash?
Yeah.
I
What do
think
you
it's
guys
happening.
You think it's going to happen?
I think it'd be a great
Absolutely,
fit for sure.
So we've had like a lot of debates in the office about like who could be in Smash based on characters who have appeared in Smash before, and like whether they're made by Western developers or Japanese developers only, and like all those things.
Yeah.
But Kingdom Hearts 3 isn't on a Sony platform
No.
and stuff like that.
But the announcement of Joker for Smash, despite Persona 5 not being on a Nintendo console,
yes,
is a big thing. And
because Q2 at least has been on 3DS in
Right.
Japan. We'll see if it comes
right.
West
And we
Coast.
have had Kingdom Hearts games on Nintendo handhelds.
Yeah,
So that
like-
would sort of work.
Chain of Memories,
Yeah.
Dream Drop Distance, Recoded. There's been so much that it wouldn't be shocking to me, and I feel like Sora is on the level of Joker, of like a requested character and like a surprise character.
Yeah.
So my hope is that Sora.
Yeah, I feel like Sora hits that balance of being just unexpected enough, but also so like highly requested that he just makes the perfect choice to be a character.
Imagine being able to like just like switch through different like Keyblade transformations.
It would be
or all,
so
it would,
cool.
Yeah.
You get to call in Donald and Goofy for a final attack.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if that would happen.
That would be good.
If like, that's my thing, is I don't know if they could get the Disney rights. Like they could probably get the Square Enix character rights.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of my favorite things, is like openings of Kingdom Hearts games. You always see the like credits for people who own things, and it's like, you know, these are owned by Disney, this is owned by Pixar. Winnie the Pooh is always separate from everyone else. I guess because Disney didn't originally own the rights. We'll see. I feel like Sora is a pretty likely candidate.
Yeah.
How is the Winnie the Pooh world in this?
Is it its
Violent?
own complete
Whoa!
full world?
Unexpected.
It's similar to how it functions in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 in terms
Okay.
of it being a like side world that isn't as fully
Okay.
packed with things to do as those other worlds, but is also very much like a side world.
Did
Nonetheless,
Did
yeah,
Pooh lose his memory again?
it's brutal. So yeah, Pooh lost his memory, and also all of his friends have been murdered.
Yeah.
It's dark.
It's a whodunit mystery.
No, it's actually it. I would say it's both. It's smaller than Pooh has been in the past games in terms of a world, but it's a nice little break from normal. It's just a couple of mini games basically that you've seen in some of the trailers. Use that. Oh, get me out of here.
Jonathan, maybe you have
Yes.
some insight on this because you are the Kingdom Hearts expert at IGN. Vinny on the IGN chat asked, how long before KH 3.5 UHD remix 720 over 4 days?
It's actually out already.
Whoa.
Yeah, they released it 5 hours after they released Kingdom Hearts 3.
5 hours over 2?
Yeah, 5 hours. 5 hours over what's today, the 28th? 5 over 28. Yeah, I don't know because like this is the first time they can really do DLC in a game. So like outside of doing a port to the next generation, I don't know if we're gonna get like a final mixed version of Kingdom Hearts 3. That isn't also like all the stuff is just released as DLC sort of thing.
Right.
So
We need a few more spin-offs to come out in the next 10 years while we wait for 4.
and then then we'll see what happens. Where am I supposed to be going? Babies and toddlers outdoors.
But
went
these
to-
worlds are so big, you can get lost in them.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot to do. Let's see if I can get through this battle unscathed. Yeah, I don't know, like, I don't think, like I said, this is the end of Kingdom Hearts, but I don't know where they go from here. Like, they do have enough of a blank slate, with this being the culmination everyone's wanted for a while, that they can kind of go wherever and it'd be okay.
Yeah.
But we are also in that weird, like, we're roughly on the edge of a console break.
Yeah.
So do they do another mobile game, or do they try to cram something into the PS4 before the PS5 comes out, or do they do a Switch game? Like, there are a lot of possibilities, but I think it'd be silly for us not to see a new Kingdom Hearts game in the next 3 years. I think we're missing the boat.
Yeah. I you know, as much as I'd like a next like proper full thing, I think we're inevitably gonna get like a couple spin-off offshoot things, probably a mobile game and maybe who knows, maybe a Switch game, maybe something specifically tailored to the Switch.
I would love that. And I think they're like knowing a lot of the Kingdom Hearts spin-offs they've talked about in the past, how they were kind of engineered also around what the hardware they were on could do. So like with Flow Motion, wanting to test that stuff out, or like using certain touch things with the DS. I think like they'd probably want to see how they could use the Switch's portability or the Joy-Cons and the HD Rumble in them. Like I could see them wanting to test things.
Yeah.
So like a Switch game that focuses on a couple of side characters, I think is not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Question from Hugo Piney on Twitch. Do you think they could do a DLC world? Do you think that's the way they would? Do you think that's the way they would roll out DLC?
I think so. It depends because like the world stories are each separate enough that you can tell a story of a world and it just has to be part of that world. Like there are tie-ins to the overarching story in each of these worlds, but I think you could do it as like a Sora had to, like, they decided to try out this world and see if they could learn anything there. Oh, and it turned out there was nothing to learn. Like it's just integrated into the story in that way without it like destroying the story. I think that's definitely possible.
Yeah.
I would actually love to see it. I think there's like, it's totally within the realm of possibility. And like I said, I would love for it to be an older world that we've seen before. Just because I think there's so much they could do with those old worlds. And I would like to not have to wait 3 years for a full HD remake.
Yeah.
But, man, I missed the final again. I think there could be DLC worlds. What do you guys think? Like, obviously not having had time with the game like I have, do you think that's a possibility? Do you think that's something you would want integrated into this game?
I think absolutely it's something we would want. The question is, like, man, it seems like these worlds take a lot of time to develop.
Yep.
And it would have to be a question, I think, on Square Enix's part of, like, you know, how much would they have to charge for this DLC to make it viable?
Totally, yeah. Like I don't think they could make a new world in a month and be like, we got it, it's fully featured, and 3 hours long and as big and as fully animated as you would expect. And then like all the things come in with, you know, Disney rights.
Right. The fact that you're working with Disney properties, it's gonna have to go through the processes. And,
it would be interesting to see, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
I think besides that, what we could see are cosmetic additions. So like in 0.2, you had the ability to totally customize Aqua's look. Obviously, Sora's look here is based upon what world he's in, so we may not get that totally, but I could see them trying to add like some fun things and can maybe change Sora and Bella and Goofy's look a little bit. Or something like adding in, there's without spoiling it too much, there's like challenges that open up post-game that you can go for. I could see them adding in like 20 new challenges, or like an Olympus Coliseum style new challenge set, or like gauntlet, things like that.
I was gonna ask about that because you say that there's no, you know, the Final Fantasy characters are kept to a bare minimum in this. But one of the big things about other Kingdom Hearts games is like that final Coliseum match where you get to fight Sephiroth, or like, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is there kind of like a post game goal for people to strive for? In Kingdom Hearts 3?
There are these things that you can access once you're at essentially the end game, that are essentially challenge rooms. They're spread across all the different worlds, though. I haven't beaten all of them, so I actually don't know if, like, at the end there's a Sephiroth boss battle that you get to. I haven't seen that yet. But that's the thing is, like, I think there's room to add something like that, especially to bring in the Final Fantasy characters. Without, like, huge spoilers in it, like, you do go to Twilight Town again, we know that. A big original Kingdom Hearts world is also Radiant Garden, which was previously... Yes. Which was previously Hollow Bastion. It plays a role in the game, but not as big as one as you might think it would.
Okay.
And so I think seeing them explore that world more fully could easily be something to do in DLC, because it's an original world, something you don't have to worry about necessarily. I think Mitchell,
What's up?
my
We're
controller
low on-
might die.
Oh
Low
no.
on juice.
But I think seeing something like that where they take the original worlds that they've made, I could see
Yeah.
them trying to lean into that stuff.
Okay.
For sure.
And how much of the overarching plot is peppered into the world? It's pretty minimal.
Yeah, for the most part. Like, every world has a cameo from a main Kingdom Hearts villain or big character. Like, they factor into all the worlds, but it's usually like, here's a couple cutscenes. Occasionally, they are the root cause of why you're in that world.
Yeah.
And those are definitely the more interesting ones. But thank you, Mitchell. For the most part, sometimes it's just a cameo for 5 minutes and then it's nothing.
Yeah.
There is really much a focus on the world stories themselves. So, oh, nope.
And sort of the end, the last like large chunk of the game is reserved to resolve.
Yes, yeah, like you're not getting, there are longer cutscenes. Every like 2 or 3 worlds, you get a bit of a longer story beat with some of the main characters, and you get a sense of like what's going on with them. But other than that, like world to world, you're really focused on the Disney world, and then eventually why Sora's.
Okay.
But I will say, like, yeah, that end gauntlet, if you want Kingdom Hearts resolution and things going on,
Yeah.
that end world will do it for you. That end gauntlet, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Any other questions from the chat?
Let's see. Over on the IGN chat, someone asks. Let's see. Name is NZZ1993. How is the voice acting of the characters like Woody, who doesn't have Tom Hanks?
So the voice acting of Woody is one of my most delighted facts about Kingdom Hearts. Woody is played by Jim Hanks, and Mitchell, you may want to double check this for me.
Yeah.
I believe it's Jim. Jim is Tom's brother. Jim, essentially, when Tom doesn't do the voices of his characters, Jim comes in to do those character voices. And so it definitely sounds a little bit like someone doing a Tom Hanks impression, but that's because it's his brother. It doesn't sound bad. Like, he does a good enough job of capturing the character enough as you would expect. You definitely know it's not Tom Hanks, and there's definitely a little bit of a spark missing. But I just love the idea that, like, Jim's job is to do Tom's voice when Tom isn't available. Like, what family reunions must be like? It's like, so Jim, what have you been working on? What you worked on, Tom, and then decided not to work on because you did another movie. Like, he does a really solid job, though, all things considered, like knowing he has to stand in the shadow of his brother's iconic role. Does a pretty good job with it. But they did also really get a lot of the voice actors back, which I think is so rad. Like, in the Toy Story world alone, you do get Ham and Rex back, Wallace Shawn and Jeffrey Ratzenberger, I want to say, if I'm not messing up their names. Whereas, like, in the Tangled world, Zachary Levi is back as Flynn Rider. In the Frozen world, almost the whole principal cast is back.
And Hayden Panettiere is Kyrie. Is she?
She's
back?
not back
No?
as Kyrie.
Okay.
Kyrie, excuse me. I believe it's Allison Stone who has played Kyrie in a couple of
Okay.
Yeah. Some of the, like, celebrity voices for the original characters are gone. One of my favorite things, and again, this is why I hope he's in this game, Sephiroth was played by Lance Bass of NSYNC in Kingdom Hearts 1. Lance Bass was in a Kingdom Hearts game. That's amazing. David Boreanaz was Leon. Like, so many crazy voices were in these old Kingdom Hearts games.
Yeah.
But they did a really solid job of at least getting the Disney voice. And, like, Tate Donovan plays Hercules. James Woods is Hades. So
Gotcha.
it's nice to see. I forget Mitchell, would you mind looking this up? It may or may not be a spoiler, but who is voicing Xehanort in this game? Because Xehanort was originally voiced by, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe it was, Leonard Nimoy before he passed.
If only I can remember how to spell Xehanort.
Xehanort.
That's a
Got
true
it.
fan right there.
Also, someone said, you mean Colin Hanks? No, we mean Jim Hanks.
We mean Jim Hanks.
Colin Hanks is Tom Hanks' son.
Who is currently on Life in Pieces on CBS and did a cool documentary about Tower Records. Colin Hanks is actually like a pretty rad dude.
While Mitchell looks that up, I just want to apologize to Hugo Pini, who corrected me on the pronunciation. He looks like he's from Italy. So, sorry about that.
Alex, it's been great working with you. This has been a fun run.
I'll see myself
Please
out.
leave.
You're
just
fine.
leave.
In Kingdom Hearts 3, Xehanort is voiced by Rutger Hauer.
I thought so. I didn't want to spoil it in case it wasn't like publicly out there. But yeah, like famed actor Rutger Hauer is voicing Xehanort. I can't imagine how they pitched Xehanort to Rutger Hauer, but I'm gonna skip this scene. So, Mitchell.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you make the call on this.
Yep.
There is a little bit of a fun Easter egg popping up in here.
Always go with the funny Easter eggs.
You want to show it?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna show this Easter egg. If you don't want to see this Easter egg, you probably don't want to watch the next like 5 minutes of the stream
But come back.
But
Please.
come back,
don't,
please.
Don't just leave and then never come back.
because we're gonna hop to the Kingdom of Corona just a little bit after.
And we'll
this.
miss you.
We'll always miss you, but you'll forever be in our hearts. Kingdom Hearts, now available on PS4 and Xbox One. So Rutger Hauer is playing Xehanort, which is pretty crazy. And then, unfortunately, Christopher Lee, who also passed away, was playing Ansem the Wise previously.
Mhm.
I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah. The voices in this game are insane, who they have gotten to play these characters.
Who could ever forget, what is it, Mina Suvari playing Eris in Kingdom
Oh,
Hearts
yeah.
2.
A role she definitely knew a lot about
Oh
as she
my
took.
god, that was, what a nightmare that was.
Yeah, that was not a great one. Let's see, what is my goal? Yes.
I really love the Keyblade designs. That gallery we have on the website. If you haven't seen them yet, go check that out. Just all the little touches.
These Keyblades are amazing. Yeah, I'm going to pull out the Olympus one because I can easily be playing on a little bit too much. How much time do we have left on the stream, Mitchell?
We have about 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. This is going by way quicker than I thought it would. I have so much more we could talk about, but
Airman
Airman, my favorite.
from Mega Man.
Yes. Fun fact, Capcom entirely produced Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, this is basically, again...
This was the Easter egg you were going to
Yeah,
show
this
us.
was the Easter egg. I may actually swap out before we hit the Easter egg just to save it for fans who don't want it spoiled right now. But let's see who we got here. I'm going to just show off that Keyblade for a little bit. So yeah, this turns into a shield
Oh, nice.
that has very lightning-focused powers to it, and you can use it like you saw as like kind of can chuck it at guys and it comes back to you.
Mm.
A little bit like the yo-yos from the Monsters Inc. world that we've seen before. A little bit different.
We have another question that's kind of the same vein that we've answered before, but we should probably answer it again. Jonathan, Michael Stanton wants to know, I'm interested in this game, but haven't played any of the previous ones. Should I not play this until I'm all caught up?
Yes and no. Like, if you want to be part of the Kingdom Hearts 3 conversation in the next 2 weeks, then, like, yeah, you just need to skip it. Like, that's the unfortunate reality of
But
that.
watch your awesome recap.
Yeah, so I would recommend if you want to go back, at least try them out. Maybe you love the games. Maybe you find, like, new favorites in there. I don't, like, there's no reason, if you don't care about, like, needing to play this game in the next week, go give them all a shot. The remixes are all on PS4. You can play through the full series, essentially. It is worth doing, especially if you're going to enjoy it.
It's just a huge time investment.
It's a big investment. There's probably 100 hours you're looking at.
Yeah.
But on IGN, we have the Kingdom Hearts story in 5 minutes, roughly. We also have, what else do we have? We have a 3-part series called IGN Breakdown, where I tell you about the story of Kingdom Hearts, the characters of Kingdom Hearts, and then the Kingdom Hearts 3 gameplay. So you have a bit of a primer there. We've talked a lot about it on Beyond, IGN Beyond, our weekly PlayStation show. You can go to beyond.ign.com to see a few of those episodes. Where are more enemies? And then, if all of that isn't enough for you, in the Kingdom Hearts 3 main menu, you can watch essentially a 5-part series detailing a lot of the big story points you need.
Yeah.
And how good is that? How comprehensive is that 5-part series?
So I haven't
seen
watched
yet?
the English versions of them. They actually released them in Japanese a while back, so I watched them in subtitle form. They do a pretty comprehensive bit. Each one's probably like 2 to 5 minutes, I would say. So obviously you're not getting every little bit of nuance that you could possibly get, but you're getting like roughly the same amount as you would watching our in 5 minutes. So just watch IGN's Kingdom Hearts in 5 minutes, because I made it. It took us 3 years to put together, so please watch it.
But sort of as the story has gone on, like as each game has been released, I feel like the story's been sort of continually getting more and more convoluted is one way to put it, but just sort of like spreader, like wider and wider. The world has just continued to expand with like prequel content and then, further content. Do you feel like this game ropes it all in, or does it continue to sort of expand and bring...
No, surprise. So like it does definitely set up for the future of Kingdom Hearts, but it does a surprisingly great job of roping everything in.
Okay.
Like this game very much is about wrapping up what you've seen before rather than trying to give you 30 new things to focus on.
Okay.
It is very much about the characters and the plot and the struggles that have been ongoing in this franchise since it began. And so like that was really impressive to me because there are, like you said, the prequel introduced 3 new protagonists. The back cover and all that stuff introduced the whole new concept of the foretellers in the Keyblade War. Like there's all these different things you can go to.
And are all those touched on in this game?
Everything is touched on. Whether or not it is satisfying to you may vary, but everything is touched on.
Okay.
Yeah, very impressive. I'm trying to find a save point so I can get out of here. Did I pass one? Let's find out.
I have a question for you, Jonathan.
Yes.
Be honest. Do you think that Tetsuya Nomura had a vision of where Kingdom Hearts would eventually end up when they first started making this?
I think he had a vision for where things would end up. I think everything from the beginning to that end point was up for grabs. Yeah. Any good story, and like that's the reality about any good ongoing story. Like very few cases is there something where every meticulous point is plotted out from minute one. That almost never happens, and I wouldn't have expected that to happen with a franchise like this, no less one that's spread across so many different platforms and new story beats and all that stuff. Do I think he had ideas about the foretellers in the Keyblade War way back when? Probably a bit. Do I think he had the specifics of when Sora would interact with some of these characters? No.
Right.
Is that bad? No.
Like certain ideas, like the Keyblade graveyard, and like sort of like these different like pivotal moments, and then. I think a lot of that may have been plotted out sort of early on, and then the stories behind like how those elements in the world got there.
Yeah, some of the more finessing details, and especially as you're building out the lore. If he had all of this in his head for the last 18 years, how does your brain work that way? That's insane. Most works of art, and especially the ones that we all hook to because they have great mythologies, tend not to behave that way. We all love Lost. Lost did not have everything, or not all of us love Lost, but like every little detail of Lost that you probably are interested in wasn't planned from minute one.
Right.
And they had no idea where half that stuff was going when they introduced it. You introduce things like the Breaking Bad guys, like obviously that's a more grounded story, but they talked about very specifically they'd write themselves into corners in season finales that they didn't know how to write themselves out of until they went back to the writer's room. I'm going to switch to a new world, by the way, if you want to head back. There might be a small spoiler in one of the load screens. But yeah, I don't think he had everything from the beginning. I think he had the general gist of things. That's not wrong. That's not bad.
Well, let's also not forget that Nomura was behind Versus 13, which eventually morphed into Final Fantasy 15. So he's had his hand in a lot of projects, and just the creative process in general in development is always like a constantly fluid, ever-evolving process. So things are always changing.
Yes, absolutely. And especially as things changed across technology advancements in such a way. Like they probably can do things now that they obviously couldn't do when the series first started. You're good to go back to it if you haven't already. It just makes sense that they would have things ebb and flow. So now we're in the Kingdom of Corona. Wanted to show off a little bit about, I was talking before about, there's a bit more of a crowd to this. There's a lot more bustling, life to it, which I really appreciate.
I bet we'll find some ingredients around here.
Another little note from Hugo Peni from Twitch says, I feel like Kingdom Hearts 3 is a bit like Metal Gear Solid 4. You either get it or you don't. And it's funny, even just watching this a little bit, I was getting sort of Metal Gear Solid 4 vibes just in that we've had sort of, it's building to this culmination, and the stories are so convoluted and deep, and only like the hardest of hardcore fans really understand the ins and outs. And Metal Gear Solid 4 was very much like you had sort of explained with Kingdom Hearts 3, taking all of those, disparate parts and loose ends and tying them all together.
Yes, absolutely. So as a heads up, we're going to jump into, this is essentially like one of the kind of gimmick minigame things of the Tangled world. It's a dancing minigame. I thought I had beaten it on the save. I have not. So you get to see this dancing minigame unfold in real time. This is essentially one of the world-specific things. This is obviously not in, say, the Pirates world or the San Francisco.
I really hope that Haley Joel Osment motion cap this.
Oh man, I hope so too. That would be amazing. I need to interview him post this game for all those questions of like, did you have to do all of that? Any other questions from the chat as I focus on my dancing?
Let's see
Oh no,
here.
you're
Again, another mention about Nintendo Switch. It sounds like folks really want to play this on their Nintendo Switch. Do you think
Shocker.
it's technically possible?
This is
It-
so fun.
probably. I mean, we're getting Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Resident Evil 7
That's
to
true with the
stream.
cloud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like so there may be workarounds like that.
Mhm.
There's a lot going on in here. But again, we see
Yeah.
like huge impressive games
Right.
like Breath of the Wild work on it. So
And it is built on the Unreal Engine, I believe,
yeah, I
which
forget if they
probably
switched
could scale because I think it was initially on Luminous,
that. Yes,
and
yeah,
then they
switched
moved it
Yes.
over to Unreal. So yeah, maybe there's we know Switch is can run Unreal Engine games.
Yes.
So maybe there's a scaling thing they could do to make that work.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like, there's definitely want for it on Switch.
Yes.
I think that's pretty clear. There's also want, as I've noticed in the chat, for me to get a haircut. Thank you very much. I've been pretty busy reviewing this game. I haven't had time to get a haircut. I'll probably get one soon.
Let's see, what else do we have here?
Dance. Ooh, a new record of dance. Yeah, so the high score. I do want to talk a little bit about, as you guys look for questions, the trophies in this game, or achievements for you Xbox players. I'm a big trophy hunter. It's a pretty achievable platinum in terms of like in the collection. A lot of the platinums came from having to like replay the game in 15 hours or playing in without changing equipment, things like that. There are less of those requirements for trophies this time around, and they are more focused on high scores of things or of finding a certain amount of the lucky emblems or things like that. And I way appreciate that because it incites you to explore basically every nook and cranny of this game.
Okay.
So if you are a trophy or achievement hunter, I think this is a pretty fun one to go for, especially if you love this game.
Cool.
As I keep dancing any other.
Yeah. Ghost Load over on the IGN chat was asking about other worlds, like Zootopia or Dumbo. We don't have those specific worlds in there.
We do not.
Everything that they've confirmed, those worlds are there. I mean, again, like spoiler thing, but are there other surprise Disney worlds, or what we see is what we get?
There are definitely non-Kingdom Hearts worlds that are new.
Okay.
I will say that for
Okay.
sure. I don't want to say too much more about the Disney stuff, but I will say
Gotcha.
there is so much to these worlds that you do know about that you'll have a lot to explore in those worlds.
Mhm.
It was weird though, as like a pre-launch thing. My timing was a little off there. Oh well. As a pre-launch thing, it is a little weird that we saw almost every world in as much detail as we
Right,
did,
yeah.
because I've always been used to, especially when trailers weren't as big a thing in this much and like so plentiful now. I was used to the surprise of, oh, I didn't know that world was in there, or oh, this thing is in there. I didn't know. So there's a little loss of surprise, definitely.
Yeah.
But there is such a joy in discovering the full layout of these worlds.
Right.
So there's a lot there to learn.
hmm And there's a little bit less of surprise as far as the way the story resolves too, but it's satisfying.
Yeah, so in my review, I mentioned the fact that, like, having had so much time, I guess, to ruminate on this game, the story specifics never really surprised me on the, like, Kingdom Hearts story level, not the Disney.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've seen the Disney movies. I know how those stories go.
Right.
But it didn't surprise me, but that said, like, seeing them play out and seeing those moments finally happen did delight me. And
Okay.
it did satisfy me for the most part. There are definitely a couple where I was like, that probably could have been a little better. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it. I had a dopey grin, as I said, on my face
Yeah.
the whole ending bit. It was a good time.
Cool.
Yeah. Should be getting to the end of this dancing minigame soon. Sorry, I didn't realize it was a 30-minute dance.
Keep dancing.
But if you have any other questions, either about my review or about what we've seen in the game so far, why Mitchell hates good games, things like that, just feel free to ask us in any of the chats. I believe we are still on Mixer, YouTube, Twitch, and IGN.com, of course.
Josh Horler on YouTube is just asking what platform we're playing on. We're playing on PS4 Pro, correct?
Yes, we're on a Pro, correct? Yeah, we are on a PS4 Pro. I played predominantly on a PS4 Pro, saw a little bit of on normal PS4, and we've had a dedicated freelancer working on it on Xbox for it, and no real issues with the Xbox version or anything like that. I will say, even on PS4 Pro, I may just need to air out the fans. In load screens, my PS4 gets loud. It really starts to act up.
Okay.
But while playing the game, for the most part, it stays pretty quiet. So for story reasons you don't know, we're currently fighting a crop of nobodies. So you'll see a little bit different combat with them. I still like they've captured the approach as they have in past games, where like taking on nobodies is different from fighting Heartless is fighting from First.
Okay.
The nobodies definitely require a little bit more dodging and I can't think of the word, guarding. Though I mentioned this in my review, guarding has always been like one of my favorite things to do in a Kingdom Hearts game, because you get like such a satisfying, you get like a little bit extra XP, and you also get to do just like a real fun counter usually. I never used my guarding in this game. I never felt really a need to, but there are so many other gameplay options that it did really. Okay. I never really had like that mix of offensive and defensive that I'm used to.
Okay.
As much as
Next to Heaven in the IGN chat asks, what's the length?
So running through the story, and granted, I was on a little bit of a time crunch for the review. These things are a process. I played through the story in roughly about 27 hours. I think my gameplay counter, it does still do that gameplay counter thing of like if you're paused and in a menu, the counter runs up, which I hate. But so it roughly ended at like 28, 29, so I subtracted an hour from having to make sure my dog wasn't peeing on the carpet. But yeah, roughly about 27 hours for the story, collecting like 40 to 50% of each world, I would say. And so far I've gone back and I've played at least another 10 hours so far, and still have a decent chunk of things, and probably at least another 10 hours.
Okay.
I know there was a lot of like miscommunication before the game launched about like, it has 100 hours, it has 80 hours, like all these things. I think probably you're looking at about 60-ish hours, 60 to 70, which is nothing to sneeze at. But you also could probably spend as much time as you want going through. I can imagine the grind to level 99 will be a little bit more.
Right.
We'll see how that goes. This is another attraction for reference. This is one of the ones I love the most. It is the merry-go-round, basically, carousel.
Yeah.
So get you through this. I will use the finisher. It goes nuts. Yeah, so these are really cool. I love this.
I love how bright they are. And they just really stand out.
It really reminds me, when we were talking to Tai Yasue before launch, he said they were really thinking like, Disney Main Street and like the spectacle of a parade and Disney and stuff like that. How do you capture that in a gameplay scenario? And I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, so smart to integrate Disney parks, because that's like such a huge part of Disney.
It's such a staple, and yeah, when it's not really been part of these games nearly as much, it's very good to have them.
Yeah.
Hot tip for crowd control. Man, I use Thunder so much in this game now. Very good gameplay.
Good AoE.
Oh, yeah.
Choice, yeah.
Especially with Thundaza, the like special command version, you can clear out guys like it's nothing.
Does it not take a ton of MP like it usually does?
Especially when you're leveled up, you can use it at least 4 times, I'd say, before you run out of magic. And then you get Thundaza as a command, so it doesn't use your MP, which is really nice.
And just a little reminder for everyone watching, we have our Wikis team putting together just a guide. We have a whole list of tips and tricks and a whole walkthrough for you to hop in and take a look at.
Yes.
Please pray for Casey.
Yes. Pray for our team working on that wiki. There is a lot. The lucky emblems I think I've found 50 to 60 so far. There are at least, I think, 40 more or so, 30 to 40 more that I know of. Some of them are real hard to find. A lot of them, your eye is naturally drawn to them. And I would say the game is pretty good about, like, as you're entering an area and maybe there's one in the environment, being like, oh yeah, that's where that one is. I should have kind of probably seen that earlier. But some of them are hard to find. Some of them are made out of things in the environment that you wouldn't be looking at unless you're exploring. Some of them are totally to the side, so that if you're just going through the story, you would never see. Some are really embedded in the environment. It's really interesting, and I like that treasure hunt aspect to it, outside of the other treasures you actually have.
So I was going to ask, are they kind of like witnessy kind of puzzle based, where like you have to, it depends on the way you look at it, and it kind of forms the The Mickey Mouse ears?
Not as complex as The Witness, but yeah, there is a little bit of like, you have to be at the right angle for some things. You have to like, one of them is like, look out for a group of plates on a table that look like Mickey ears, but you have to really be at a specific viewpoint from those plates or it will not appear as a set of Mickey ears. But it trains you into looking in the environment. And like in Twilight Town, there's an old fashioned like movie reel going. And I was looking at the 2 reels being like, can I fit those somewhere to be on someone's head to look like a set of Mickey ears? Maybe I can make that work. Like you really get into like analyzing every little bit of the environment, which is nice because you really get to appreciate the details. Skipping through story cutscenes, don't want to spoil all this. We're getting towards the end of this level. I probably won't play the boss battle here. Though, like I said, it's been our review, but just in case you haven't seen our review, please check out my review. Worked very hard on it, but I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. You're probably picking up the game today if you haven't already.
I love how visually distinct they all are. I mean, it kind of comes with, each one being based on a beloved Disney film, but just the variety seems really.
Yeah, right. So right now on the stream, we've seen the Olympus world, the Toy Story world, and the Tangled world, and they could not be more perfect. I really love that world.
Is Sora's outfit always dependent on the world that he's in, or are there some worlds where it's like you can customize how he looks?
So you can't customize in any of the worlds, but like his outfit is his pretty standard outfit for Tangled, Frozen, and Twilight Town. Every other world, it's like, so essentially for those who may not know, like Donald's magic protects them from looking too different from the world they're in. So that's why you'll see them in crazy Halloween Town outfits or, looking like something else like pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean world. So they do have those transformations in that world, in the Toy Story world, and a couple others. I think in San Francisco they look largely the same because that is a very like human world.
Mm-hmm. And I know you're a big fan of Big Hero 6. Did that world deliver on?
It's really cool. So like I was saying, I've gone back. That's the world that I probably have the most to still find.
Okay.
Because there's so much embedded in that world, and it's such a big chunk of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're going street to street, but you can also run up entire skyscrapers, and you can explore the tops of those skyscrapers, and then maybe like there's a weird divot in one, so you need to go investigate around the corner of it. Like there's so much to that world. I just I love the visual aesthetic of it because it marries, I think, San Francisco and Tokyo in such cool ways.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to actually just run around it, it's like it's a neo-futuristic city done by Disney that I really like.
Yeah. As far as because I know some of the worlds have completely original stories and some are loosely based on just like the plots of the movies.
Yeah.
What's like the ratio of that? Is it a 50-50 split?
No, I would say it's mostly original stories. Tangled and Frozen are probably the only ones that are like beat for beat.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Pirates of the Caribbean is a little bit. It's pretty much like an approximation of a little bit of Dead Man's Chest and then Outworld and the third movie. Pretty much, everyone's favorite Pirates of the Caribbean movie. So that one, and also that one was probably the one I cared the least about the story and but loved the world the most.
Okay.
This is another attraction, by the way. This is probably one of my favorites, the Splash one, because basically you create this huge river raft.
That's so awesome.
And then you just
that is so awesome.
You go all the way back, and I love it so much. But other than that, like, Toy Story's new. The Olympus is like a riff on Hercules stories that we know.
Okay.
Trying to think. San Francisco's new. What else is there? I think that covers pretty much all of them. Monsters Inc. is pretty new,
Mm-hmm.
and that one's fun because it's very much like a character-focused story.
Okay.
Do you think there's any hero in any form of media who has more fun being a hero than Sora?
Ooh, that's a good question. Trying to think of like the saddest hero ever and just be like someone really burdened with a lot of. I think Rick Grimes really just loves his life.
For sure. He just wakes up every day looking forward to being a hero.
He loves it. That responsibility never gets to that. He's not on the show anymore. What? No, I like. There is such a like hopeful optimism and even a little bit of naivete towards Sora that makes him just one of the most damn like happiest people to be doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like even in the face of omnipresent, such powerful darkness, he's like, nah, dude, my friends are still gonna save me. Yeah. And even if we die, the power of our friendship will still get you in the end. It's like, oh man, Like, you can be faced with the most traumatic events of your life. We're still going to come out in the end.
So his disposition in 3 is still pretty consistent with what we saw before?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
I don't want to go too much into Sora because I actually, once people play this game, want to talk about it because I think the portrayal of Sora, both on Haley Joel's side and then both on the narrative side and how they approach Sora, is really odd at times.
Okay.
By the way, Mitchell, I'm going to hop out to another world just because we're going to hit the boss battle and I don't want to spoil it. We're almost wrapping up here anyway. But, yeah, Sora is really interesting in this game, and I don't want to say too much more than that for fear of ruining it for people, but I think there's a lot to talk about there. I'm going to go a little bit into the frozen world. We've only seen a little bit of this world. We were embargoed up until launch day to show you this. Again, not going to show you any story stuff in here. Don't worry about that. Just want to show you this for the last 10 minutes of the stream. Have a little fun in the frozen tundra of Arendelle. But yeah, Sora is really interesting here, and I think the way the other characters react to Sora is also really interesting. And I want to see how people feel about that. So we'll see.
Excellent.
Yeah. Any other questions as we're wrapping up?
Let's see. Devil's Corp Doc from Twitch asks, what do you think of the dialogue in the game? So maybe like the way the characters are written and the delivery.
So I talk a little bit about that in my review. And again, it's one of those things where, and Mitchell, if you haven't already, you can head back to the game itself. That's an interesting one because, again, like this is a game being made for a wide mass audience. But for kids, obviously for the adults who've been with it for a while, but obviously people who are younger too. And so I think there is definitely a slowness to the dialogue that now that I'm older, it sticks to me more, like having revisited Kingdom Hearts 1. It's still definitely present in those older games, but now that I'm older, it bothers me a bit more.
Okay.
In terms of just like when you compare it to the source material, there's oftentimes such a pace and a rapidity to the source material that I feel like this one doesn't have. And obviously they're fitting a lot more in here, so that can be difficult. But because it looks now so visually close to the movies, when there is that gap in the dialogue, you feel it a little bit more. Like the pauses in stories or in dialogue, you feel a little bit more. And some of it, I think, is a technical level of like, the game was probably originally mapped to the Japanese dialogue and to the Japanese voice acting, and so they needed to maybe artificially add pauses in for ones that were longer. So like, there are those considerations to definitely consider, but at the end of the day, you do get that sense of a little bit of slowness at times.
Okay.
But that said, it is still really fun, like I said, to see Donald and Goofy interact with Jack Sparrow, or to like the way Baymax finds Donald amusing, or like Sora interjecting himself into the story of Tangled. Like there are all those fun moments still, and those little interactions are still so cute and so fun that I often could put the pacing issues aside to still enjoy. Yeah. But now that I'm older, and especially have been through so many more storytelling opportunities and experiences, you definitely feel it.
Yeah. Now, we haven't seen really any of Riku and Kairi, and that's probably a conscious decision on your part.
Yeah, I didn't want to show them too.
But do they get a significant bit of the spotlight here in the game? Are they integral characters?
Yeah, they are still integral characters. As we know, if you know the story up into Kingdom Hearts 3, Riku, and if you don't, I'll preface it a little bit. Riku, one of Sora's childhood friends, is with Mickey trying to save the other Keyblade Master Aqua from the Dark World, while Kairi is off training to become a Keyblade wielder master, essentially, after the events of Kingdom Hearts 2 and everything. She's hoping to up her skills. Those stories are both very much addressed, and you do see them throughout it. How you do, I don't know.
Okay.
But they are definitely part of the story. That said, this is very much Sora's story.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think in terms of like what people might be disappointed on, because they spent so much time apart, it's not like because they're off on their own adventures, you don't see Sora, Riku, and Kairi hanging out for 10 hours in the middle. Like, that doesn't happen.
Right.
I'm willing to say that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting how the game approaches it, and it's something I want to talk about a lot more with people as they hear the full game.
I feel like that was like such a big draw of the first game, especially just because you see them all together and then they're separate, and you want them to get back together so bad, and that's like what's so rewarding there at the end of even the first game, and then leading into the second. So I can imagine it'll make for a pretty emotional.
It'll be interesting, actually, having spoken to having the wonderful opportunity to speak to Nomura before the game came out, he was saying, like, I very much wrote the story that I felt like I should write. It may not be what everyone wanted or envisioned necessarily, but like this was what I saw. I'm paraphrasing him, that is not a direct quote, but essentially, you know, he very much was writing with the story he had in mind with what he wanted to tell at this point in the franchise. And whether that's, you know, what we all thought of 17 years ago, it might differ a little bit. But like I said, I still found a lot of it satisfying.
17 years.
I think it's been 17.
Yeah, 2002.
Yeah. Man, I still remember getting the first Kingdom Hearts with a PS2 for Christmas. And I replayed the opening cutscene with Simple Clean playing like 50 times on Christmas Day. My whole family was downstairs, and I was just watching the scene like, this is what games are.
Yeah.
And we've come a long way. We've come a very long way. Mitchell, I assume we're wrapping up here pretty soon.
Soon, yeah. 5 minutes.
Any last questions from the chat?
Let's see. Another one from Hugo P&I in Twitch saying, I'm not really an expert. Are Keyblade wielders the equivalent of Jedi?
Yes and no. I mean, like, probably at this point in the story, it's a pretty good approximation. Obviously, if you've seen a thing called the Keyblade Graveyard, there were a lot of Keyblade wielders at one point in the storyline. Why that's different and why that's not part of the history of the series, and I don't want to like bog you down in that right now, but that factors into it. So yeah, essentially right now, it's not just Keyblade wielders though, but it's very specifically Guardians of Light are the people that we're looking for in this game. You're looking to amass 7 Guardians of Light to fight the 13 Secrets of Darkness to protect Kingdom Hearts. Those are beings, you know, of pure hearts, of pure lights.
Force users.
Yes, Force users, but Keyblade wielders in a sense. Not all of them are. So, like, there is a thing of, you know, like Jedi Masters. There are Keyblade Masters versus just Keyblade wielders. That is a distinction.
Okay.
That is actually very important to a couple of the older games, like Ven, Aqua, and Terra. You meet them when Aqua and Terra were taking their Mark of Mastery exam. Riku and Sora go through a Mark of Mastery exam, and that exam is kind of why Sora doesn't have much powers at the start of this game. So, yeah, the lore of why Keyblade wielders and Keyblade Masters are who they are does factor into the story a lot, but I hope they never go like too full into the exposition of it, because I think keeping some vagueness to it keeps the magic alive in it, and also like whenever you get into the nitty gritty of it, you get midichlorians.
Yep.
You get the stuff you don't need.
Yeah.
So,
but I do like that that comparison. That's pretty interesting.
Yes. One thing I also want to point out in this world, you're seeing these like these deer heartless. When we were speaking to the developers, they mentioned how, especially particularly with the Frozen team, they worked hand in hand for the enemy heartless design, especially like the final boss design in this world. They worked with them to make sure they stayed true to the design of Frozen as a world, which I think is just a really cool. There are clearly different, varying levels of Disney's interaction world by world. For example, they were telling us Pixar really wanted to be in from like the storyboarding level, whereas Disney often checked in a little later on things, but every team seemed to have its own want and desire to input certain things, which I think is really cool and shows to the sense of like how this is such a collaborative.
Right. Yeah, the only other comparison I could even think of is Smash Brothers, that takes so many different franchises and finds a cohesive look that makes it all work.
Yeah, and their ability to do that with so many disparate Disney franchises is pretty impressive. So right now we're just going through the hills of Arendelle. We'll probably be wrapping up in just about 2 minutes. Again, if you've been watching this, thank you so much. If you haven't already, please check out my review of Kingdom Hearts. It's on IGN.com, youtube.com/IGN. Also, the game is out. I genuinely, as a fan of the games for so long, wanted to say on this. I hope you all have fun. We've all been waiting so long. It's kind of crazy that this is out in the real thing.
Yeah.
Getting to play it for the first time back at E3, I got real misty-eyed because I was like, oh wow, this is a real game now. I can hold a controller and play this game, and this was a thing I never thought would actually come out.
If you could tell Little Dornbush many years ago that you'd be reviewing this game for IGN, that would have probably blown your mind.
I don't think he'd believe it.
Yeah.
I think and that's the thing too, like, thank you to all the fans who've been following my content and my coverage of this game. Like, this has been a blast of a game to cover and has been so meaningful and like an honor for me to cover it because of how much it meant to me throughout the years. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for this crazy journey, and I hope you enjoyed the journey that's to come in Kingdom Hearts 3. It was too slow on that carousel because I was being sweet.
And one last time, guys, don't forget to check out our wiki page. There's so many fun little things to find and stat-altering decisions you have to make, especially in the beginning of the game, and we have tips for you on all that.
There's so much. As you're going through this game, if you need help, IGN's Wiki is definitely the place to go. We will have a lot of content being filled out there as we go through the game inch by inch, so I hope you enjoy.
You have fun with it?
But yeah, I think with that, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to try not to die as I say goodbye. Mitchell, thank you so much as always for producing these. You're a wonderful man. and
Oh,
saint.
well, thank you.
Alex, thank you so much for joining me on this and for
Thanks for
allowing
having me.
The chat. Thank you again to everyone who was chatting with us on IGN, on YouTube, on Mixer, and on Twitch. Remember, we stream on all those platforms for IGN Plays Live for all the hottest and newest games like Kingdom Hearts 3 and Tetris. I assume. I don't know if we're going to stream Tetris anytime soon. Mitchell, if you want to stream Tetris, let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This has been 2 hours of us playing Kingdom Hearts 3. My name is Jonathan Dormush. This is Alex Osborne. Mitchell Saltzman is off screen. And as always, thank you so much for watching.
Stay simple, stay clean.
You beautiful man. May your heart be your guiding key.